Hello everyone, this is CA Divesh Harpalani. Couple of days back, there was the CA Final May 2026 AFM paper, which was the toughest ever paper in the history of ICAI, or at least in the last 15-20 years. And I think now you've seen multiple faculty videos, बहुत लोगों ने बातें की है, and अभी I think it is proven without doubt that it was indeed the toughest paper. But I'm not here to discuss whether the paper was tough or not. I've actually solved the full paper, analyzed how much of it was actually tough versus how much of it was doable or logical, how much of it was similar to ICAI concepts or sums, and how much of it was outside of ICAI questions that are given or new questions that were there. A lot of November 2026 students have been reaching out with a request saying that they want to understand how to change their study strategies going forward. And with that hope, I myself sat down and went through the paper to see कि आगे जो नवंबर 26 या फिर बियॉन्ड वाले जो बच्चे हैं उन लोगों को अपनी स्ट्रैटेजी में क्या कुछ चेंज करना चाहिए, अगर चेंज करना चाहिए तो क्या चेंज करना चाहिए. बाय द वे मैंने खुद बैठ के पूरा पेपर सॉल्व किया एंड ट्रस्ट मी ऑन दिस, आई माई सेल्फ ऑल्सो हैव फाउंड दिस पेपर वेरी डिफिकल्ट डिस्पाइट द फैक्ट दैट मैंने तो घर पे बैठ के सॉल्व किया है. आप लोगों ने तो एग्जाम हॉल में एग्जाम प्रेशर में जाके मे 26 वालों ने सॉल्व किया है. सो कुडोज टू यू all those of you who sat in that examination, who continued your examination of audit and will continue the group 2 if at all you are giving. Kudos to all of you and wishing you all the best. Now, before I go ahead, just mentioning that this video is for all of those जिन्होंने अपना May 26 का Group 1 का एग्जाम दे दिया है और वो Group 2 नहीं देने वाले हैं. अगर आप May 26 के लोग हो जिनके Group 2 के एग्जाम्स बाकी है, आप इस वीडियो को सेव कर दीजिए. आप वीडियो को देखिएगा जरूर, बट वॉच इट ऑन 12th of May, नॉट टुडे. आई डोंट वांट कि इस वीडियो की वजह से जरा सा भी आप डिमोटिवेट हो जाए और आपका नेक्स्ट एग्जाम डीटी का अफेक्ट हो जाए. तो आप इसको 12 मई को देखिएगा. If you are giving only group 1 of May 26, please watch this video to know how much of it was correct versus not, and that can probably get you more confidence कि कहीं ना कहीं लग रहा था टफ है बट कहीं ना कहीं 40-50 नंबर तो बन रहे हैं. And for those students who are going to appear in number 26 or beyond, आप लोग को ये वीडियो जरूर देखना चाहिए. You will be able to realize, number one, does your study strategy need to change, and if at all, how much does it need to change? Number two, what do you do if there is a similar tough paper in the examination? And for May 26 students also, ICAI had a lot of ambiguous questions in this paper, so you will be able to realize if there is a possibility of grace marks. If yes, what is the possibility of grace marks? And for number 26 and beyond, ऐसे पेपर को prepare कैसे करना है. But before we go into it, quickly introducing myself, I am CA Divesh Harpalani, fortunate to have secured an All India rank 6 and 13 in my CA final exams. And I cleared CA 5 years back now. I have close to 5 years of work experience across Advent International, which is a top 10 global private equity fund, and Bain & Co, which is a globally top 3 management consulting firm. So that is a quick introduction about me. Quickly moving to whatever I have analyzed about this paper. I have done a lot of analysis. But before you go ahead, मेरे को एक चीज़ पता है बतानी है. एक चीज़ ये बतानी है कि if you are by any chance troubled because or stressed because of this AFM paper, trust me on this. आप लोग को ये बोलते हैं ना कि खुशी बांटने से बढ़ती है, सिमिलरली तकलीफ बांटने से घटती है. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल लेट मी टेल यू, सिर्फ आप वो नहीं हो जिनका पेपर इतना अच्छा नहीं गया है. एवरीवन आउट देयर हैज हैड द सेम फीडबैक, and like other faculties have said, I genuinely believe it myself as well, that ऐसा तो नहीं है कि 0% रिजल्ट आएगा. ICAI will have to clear someone, and trust me, even if you've done decently, even if you've tried to attempt, आप पास हो जाओगे, and there's a huge possibility of grace marks as well. But like I said, तकलीफ बांटने से घटती है and खुशी बांटने से बढ़ती है. तो इस केस में क्योंकि आपकी तकलीफ है, आप इस वीडियो को ज़रूर ज़्यादा से लोगों से शेयर करिए. Not only those who've appeared in May 26, but also those who are preparing for any of these future attempts, not just November 26, but May 27, etc., who want to understand what should be changing in their study strategy for the paper of AFM in CA final. Okay, so quickly do share this with your friends and colleagues. Do also like this video, or maybe you can wait and you can watch this entire video and then you can like. I will really hope that this video serves the purpose. I've done a lot of hard work, solved the entire paper. We should hope to get at least 500 likes. And do subscribe to my channel because I will keep bringing more and more such videos on how to study AFM and how to study it better. Now, without further ado, let's just get started. quickly covering the analysis of this paper. So what I have done is I have bifurcated the questions, and of course see ये bifurcation जो है ना थोड़ा सब्जेक्टिव होगा, ठीक है, पर मैंने आपको नीचे यहाँ पे लॉजिक भी दिया हुआ है, मैंने किस क्वेश्चन को क्या डिफिकल्टी लेवल असाइन किया है, न्यू है चाहे सिमिलर है, मैंने पूरा लॉजिक के साथ आपको ये दे रखा है. मैं आपको ये हैंड आउट शेयर भी कर दूंगा, इट विल बी देयर इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स ऑफ दिस यूट्यूब वीडियो. But coming to what is the analysis. So how have I done it? I have said whether the question was similar as SM. Does it mean कि question copy paste था SM से? No, I'm not trying to say that. It means that क्या SM में इस टाइप का क्वेश्चन या तो था या इस टाइप की थियरी बुक में थी जो अगर किसी स्टूडेंट ने पढ़ा होगा वो आंसर कर पाएगा. आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट वेदर वो कॉपी पेस्ट क्वेश्चन था या नहीं था. आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट वेदर एसएम में कहीं ना कहीं ऐसी हिंट थी, एग्जांपल था, कॉन्सेप्ट था जिसके बेसिस पे आप सॉल्व कर पाओगे इन सम शेप ऑफ फॉर्म. ओके. Number two, or if not similar to SM, what is the question entirely new, the type of concept जिस टाइप का क्वेश्चन था, मे बी ऐसा टाइप का क्वेश्चन कभी भी हिस्टोरिकली आया नहीं है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल द टैक्सेशन वाला क्वेश्चन विच एवरीवन हैज बीन टॉकिंग अबाउट कि एएफएम के पेपर में टैक्स का क्वेश्चन कैसे पूछ लिया. Next is second category is whether the question was doable. I'm not going to say the question was easy or not. No question is very easy. This paper as such is super tough. But I am trying to see if that question was doable. अगर आप बैठ के एग्जाम में लॉजिक लगा रहे हो, अपना इंट्यूशन लगा रहे हो, क्या ये क्वेश्चन सॉल्वेबल था या फिर इट वाज वेरी ट्रिकी टू इवन अंडरस्टैंड ये क्वेश्चन में क्या पूछा हुआ है. ये इस बेसिस पे मैंने इसको बाइफरकेट किया है. लाइक आई टोल्ड यू, ये पूरा का पूरा एनालिसिस है जो मैंने रीजंस के साथ यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है कि किस कैटेगरी में मैंने क्लासीफाई किया है. अगर ये एसएम में से था, आई हैव आल्सो गिवन द पेज नंबर्स ऑफ एसएम में किस पेज पे था. हो सकता है एसएम में था लेकिन इट वाज अ डिफिकल्ट क्वेश्चन. आई गिव एन एग्जांपल, ब्लैक शोल्स, राइट, ब्लैक शोल्स वाज फ्रॉम एसएम लेकिन वो ट्रिकी था बिकॉज मेरे को पता है काफी स्टूडेंट्स, इनफैक्ट मोस्ट स्टूडेंट्स ब्लैक शोल्स छोड़ के जाते हैं ये सोच के कि एग्जाम में नहीं पूछेंगे बिकॉज डिफिकल्ट है. लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं आईसीआई ने, नाउ इट हैज स्टार्टेड बिकमिंग अ ट्रेंड. Jan 26 वाज डिफिकल्ट, May 26 कंसेक्यूटिव अटेम्प्ट डिफिकल्ट आया which no one would have expected, but in some shape or form it was difficult as well. So is it the new trend for AFM? Maybe so. And hence it is important to analyze this paper to figure out आपको आपकी स्ट्रैटेजी किस तरह चेंज करनी है. So let us see 34 marks were those type of questions, and this is out of 118 because इसमें optional questions are included. This includes all the optional questions. So 34 out of 118 marks was in some shape or form somewhere directly from ICAI study material plus also doable questions. क्या इसमें black shoals included है? No, black shoals included नहीं है. Despite the fact that it was from ICAI, it was tricky, तो वो यहाँ पे आपके 23 में included है. तो टोटल आप देखोगे ICAI के स्टडी मटेरियल से अप्रोक्सीमेटली 57 मार्क्स या तो 48% ऑफ द टोटल 118 मार्क्स का था जो आईसीआई स्टडी मैट में से था, एंड 52% क्वेश्चंस विच इज मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द क्वेश्चंस वर एक्चुअली न्यू. बट डज दैट मीन ऑल द न्यू क्वेश्चंस वर ट्रिकी, वर डिफिकल्ट, वर नॉट सॉल्वेबल? द आंसर टू दैट इज नो. देयर वर अ लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस, काफी सारे क्वेश्चंस ऐसे थे जो अगर आप लॉजिकली ट्राई करोगे, आई नो एग्जाम प्रेशर में बहुत मुश्किल होता है, इट इज ईजियर फॉर मी टू से फ्रॉम हियर, बट जो एग्जाम दे रहा है उसके लिए बहुत मुश्किल होता है. बट कहीं ना कहीं इफ अ स्टूडेंट ट्राइज टू कीप काम इन द एग्जामिनेशन एंड ट्राई टू सॉल्व दीज क्वेश्चंस, इट इज पॉसिबल दैट देयर आर सर्टेन क्वेश्चंस जो आपसे बन पाए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल जो टैक्सेशन वाला क्वेश्चन था, एक्चुअली अगर आप देखो, आप क्वेश्चन की रिक्वायरमेंट पढ़ोगे एंड वी विल सॉल्व द एंटायर पेपर टुगेदर. आई विल शो यू द एंटायर पेपर राइट नाउ. इन फैक्ट I can show you the glimpse of the entire paper. I'll give you this PDF. Remember, I have solved the entire paper for you over here. पूरा paper किया हुआ है मैंने, including all optional questions, and it will be there in the description of this video. You can download it. You can take a look at the solution. You can watch this entire video to see किस question को किस तरह tackle करना था. Coming back, the SGB point that I mentioned, right, the sovereign gold bonds वाला जो taxation वाला question था, क्या वो new था? Of course new था, but क्या वो doable था? Yes, doable था. क्यों doable था? We will see right now. So कहीं ना कहीं if you see total of 70 marks out of 118, which is roughly 59% of the paper was doable. Now someone might say, sir, ऐसे तो exemption भी नहीं आएगा. आप बोल रहे हो 59 marks ही मेरे को 100 में से आएंगे. नहीं, 59 मार्क्स वॉज डुएबल। बाकी 41 में आप ट्राई तो करोगे, कुछ तो हो जाएगा, ट्रिकी है लेकिन कुछ तो होगा। ब्लैक शोल्स आप पढ़ के नहीं आए, ट्रिकी है लेकिन कुछ तो याद होगा, फॉर्मूला ये वो कुछ करके आप लिख के आओगे, तो बाकी 41 में से भी आपके कुछ मार्क्स आने के चांसेस है। सो इट इज पॉसिबल टू गेट एन एग्जाम्शन इन दिस पेपर। क्या ये पेपर में 90 प्लस आ सकते हैं? प्रोबेबली नॉट इवन फॉर अ रैंकर। इट वाज इंडीड अ टफेस्ट पेपर, बट हैविंग सेड दैट, क्या ये पेपर ऐसा था जिसमें आप पास हो सको? द आंसर टू दैट इज yes. This was the quadrant which was the most difficult, which is 25 marks out of 118 was both new questions as well as tricky questions. As well as tricky questions. And when I say tricky questions, जरूरी नहीं है कि वो टफ थे, वो ऐसे questions थे जहां पे assumptions involved थे, कहीं ना कहीं questions ambiguous थे, which made it in some shape or form tough. I have, by the way, stick till the end of this video. I have a lot of takeaways for you. We will, by the way, spend the next maybe 45 minutes to 1 hour in discussing all the solutions of this paper. But towards the end, this is for all the students who are planning to appear in November 26, May 27, November 27 and so on and so forth. कि SFM, rather AFM में कैसे पढ़ना है, what is the change in the strategy that I need to make. वो टेक अवेज मैं लास्ट में डिस्कस करूंगा, बट कहीं ना कहीं यहाँ पे अगर आप एक टेक अवे देखोगे, द टेक अवे इज यू विल हैव टू बी प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर न्यू क्वेश्चंस फॉर श्योर. Number 2 takeaway over here, which is very evident, is that kahin na kahin ICAI is also asking the trickier questions from SM. For example, Sharpe optimal portfolio. For example, Black-Scholes model, जो कहीं ना कहीं आज तक इतने टेस्टेड नहीं थे. करेक्ट. नाउ सेकेंड ऑब्जर्वेशन, इफ यू सी, यही एनालिसिस अगर आप एमसीक्यूज के लिए करते हो वर्सेस सब्जेक्टिव के लिए आप अलग अलग एनालिसिस करते हो, देन यू विल बी एबल टू नोटिस दैट 20 ऑफ 30 मार्क्स वाज डुएबल एमसीक्यूज. तो अगर आप 20 मार्क्स एमसीक्यूज में से लेकर आते हो, ठीक है, इसमें तो मैंने वो ट्रिकी क्वेश्चंस जो ग्रीन नाइट वाले हैं वगैरह वगैरह, जो काफी लोग बोल रहे हैं ये कहाँ से पूछा पता भी नहीं चला, वो वाले क्वेश्चंस तो मैंने हटा दिए, उसको तो मैंने वो 10 मार्क में डाला हुआ है. जो 20 मार्क एमसीक्यूज थे, दोज वर वेरी स्कोरिंग, एंड कहीं ना कहीं अगर आपको 40-50 लाने हैं तो आपको सब्जेक्टिव में सिर्फ 25-30 मार्क्स ही लाने हैं, तो वो आपके इस 50 में से आ सकते हैं. एंड एक्चुअली आप सोचो, आपको 20 चाहिए 40 में से और पास होने के लिए, तो 18 मार्क्स तो आपके डुएबल और एसएम में से ही है. सो क्या इस पेपर में आप पास हो सकते थे? येस, यू आर एबल टू क्लियर. इज इट इजी टू गेट एग्जाम्शन? नो, इट इज नेवर इजी टू गेट एग्जाम्शन इन अ पेपर लाइक दिस, बट वाज इट पॉसिबल? येस. इज इट पॉसिबल टू गेट 90? लुक्स लाइक वेरी डिफिकल्ट. इफ देयर इज अ स्टूडेंट जो 90 लेकर आएगा, एब्सोल्युटली इनक्रेडिबल. सो दिस वाज द ब्रीफ एनालिसिस. लाइक आई टोल्ड यू, देयर इज a bunch of analysis that is done over here. Which chapter was the question from? What is the reason why I've put it as either tricky or easy? I'm again mentioning ये पूरा subjective analysis है. मेरे को जो tricky लग रहा है, आपको हो सकता है लग रहा हो कि ये doable था, ये easy था. आपको जो doable नहीं लग रहा है, आपको जो tricky लग रहा है, हो सकता है वो मेरे को doable लगा हो. तो ये subjective analysis है, but still I wanted to take an attempt for all the future students to make them realize कि where is ICAI going. In some shape or form, historically, if you ask me, kahin na kahin ICAI was asking only from quadrant 1, which is relatively doable and SM copy-paste solutions. But now it is moving to other quadrants as well, where it is asking tricky questions from the SM. It is also asking new questions outside of the SM, whether doable or tricky. That is the one-line takeaway of this entire analysis. Now if we were to quickly go to the paper solutions, I will go to the question paper first and then we will discuss the answers one by one. Okay, so इस question में question 1 over here you are given, आपको थियरी दी हुई है XYZ लिमिटेड की, ठीक है. यू आर एन M&A कंसल्टेंट दिया हुआ है इन सम शेप ऑफ फॉर्म, ठीक है. आपको बताना है ग्रीन मेल टैक्टिक का मीनिंग क्या होता है. ग्रीन मेल टैक्टिक मीन्स हायर प्राइस, acquirer offers a higher price for shares than the market price, or rather the target offers the acquirer the higher price as compared to the market price. Okay, ये question था tricky, but this was from SM ICAI theory. अगर कोई theory अच्छे से पढ़ के आए, generally AFM में लोग theory skip कर लेते हैं, but अगर आप लोग theory अच्छे से पढ़ के आए हो, तो this was an easy question from you. मैंने page numbers भी लिखे हैं. In fact, I will show you the module as well. ये कहाँ पे दिया हुआ है? in chapter number 14, if you see, आपको दिया हुआ है ग्रीन मेल ऑफर टारगेट कंपनी ऑफर्स अक्वायरर अ हायर प्राइस देन इट्स शेयर फॉर द कंपेयर टू द मार्केट प्राइस. पॉइजन पिल भी दिया हुआ है जो आपको पूछा हुआ है, वेदर टारगेट कंपनी में इशू सब्सटैंशियल अमाउंट ऑफ कन्वर्टेबल डिवेंचर्स टू इट्स एग्जिस्टिंग शेयर होल्डर्स, विच इज द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. इफ यू सी, आपको पूछा हुआ है where substantial amount of convertible debentures were given to the existing shareholders of the target company. तो ये हो गया आपका पॉइजन पिल. करेक्ट, ट्रिकी, बट इट इज फ्रॉम SM. Now the third question is यहाँ पे IPO में what will you do to unlock the value of a part of your business? You will separate it and separately IPO, and there will be a controlling stake in the newly traded subsidiary. The answer is going to be carve out. It is also given in chapter 18. If I go to 14.16, the meaning of carve out is given, and it is exactly picked up from here. If you see IPO, you will make a subsidiary through IPO. You will do this to boost your shareholder value, correct? You will be getting higher valuation, correct? And you will end up unlocking the value and enhancing the parent shareholder value. So if you see question 1 कहीं ना कहीं आपका directly ICAI SM में से है, इसलिए मैंने इसको SM कैटेगराइज किया है, but this was tricky because कहीं ना कहीं इतना थियोरी के नूक एंड कॉर्नर में से हिस्टोरिकली क्वेश्चंस नहीं पूछे हैं, ओके? बट दैट इज वन लर्निंग कि कहीं ना कहीं फ्यूचर में थियोरी की वैल्यू और इंपॉर्टेंस बढ़ रही है. ICAI इज आस्किंग यू क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम द नूक एंड कॉर्नर ऑफ द स्टडी मटेरियल, ओके? Quickly going to the next question. What have you been given? You have been given a 25 lakh of investment by Mr. X in two stocks, alpha and beta, in 60-40 ratio. Ratio has been given. दोनों का standard deviation दे दिया है 1.2% and 0.6%. दोनों के total inter से correlation दे दिया है which is 0.6. You have to what? You have to do VAR. Okay, VAR is the value at risk is the question. Question 4, which is you need to calculate the approximate diversification benefit. Essentially होता क्या है, अगर आप दो स्टॉक्स में अलग अलग अमाउंट इन्वेस्ट कर रहे थे, ओके, अगर आप अलग अलग अमाउंट इन्वेस्ट कर रहे थे एंड यू आर नॉट डाइवर्सिफाइंग, देन द टोटल वार would have been the sum of the two, would have been the sum of the two. But now what happens suddenly, because you are diversifying, your total value at risk reduces. Because you are diversifying, because of diversification, your risk will reduce. This is one core concept that we know as a part of the AFM. So what you need to do, you need to first quickly calculate, and the answer I have already taken, it is 3252. What you need to do is you will need to calculate the portfolio standard deviation, okay, which is 1.309%. How to calculate the portfolio standard deviation was already given in chapter number 2. If you see 2.09, ये आपको portfolio standard deviation कैसे calculate करते हैं already बताया हुआ है on 2.09 and 2.10. okay, coming back, ये आपने पहले portfolio standard deviation calculate किया. अब आपको क्या calculate करना है? Now you will have to calculate the VAR. You will have to calculate the portfolio standard deviation. Calculate किया, that was the news to portfolio standard deviation. Okay, now if calculated as 0.9793, now what will you do? You will calculate the individual VAR for alpha, which is 23040, individual beta for 11520, okay, 11520, and the undiversified VAR will have been the simple sum of both of these, okay, would have been the simple sum. But if you calculate the portfolio VAR where you use the standard deviation of the entire portfolio, then your total VAR will be lower than the total sum of the two VARs, which is lower by 3252, which is the answer in the question, okay? By the way, thus far no one has released the full solution of the entire May 2026 AFM paper. Clearly it was one of the most tough MCQ solutions तो लोगों ने रिलीज किए हैं, फुल पेपर रिलीज नहीं किए सॉल्यूशन, एंड आई एम आल्सो इन अ वे टेकिंग अ रिस्क बाय रिलीजिंग दिस सॉल्यूशंस बिकॉज यू नो ICAI it will take its own assumptions. It is quite possible that my answers may not match with that of ICAI, but जहाँ पे भी मेरे को ambiguity लगी है, scope for assumptions लगा है, मैंने मेरे नोट्स में कॉल आउट कर लिया है, and hence there is a higher likelihood that these answers match with that of the suggested answers. But clearly this is the first video जो है किसी भी फैकल्टी ने फुल पेपर सॉल्यूशन अब तक अपलोड नहीं किया है, ओके? कमिंग टू क्वेश्चन 5, दिस वाज डूएबल. सी दिस वन, ये जो डाइवर्सिफिकेशन है, दिस वाज ट्रिकी. व्हाई? बिकॉज ऐसा कोई क्वेश्चन स्टडी मटेरियल में नहीं है, लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं इफ यू रीड दिस क्वेश्चन आपको पूछा हुआ है डाइवर्सिफिकेशन बेनिफिट ऑफ द पोर्टफोलियो, तो इसका मतलब ये है अगर आपने अलग अलग इन्वेस्ट किया होता तो कितना बार होता, एंड नाउ अगर आप साथ में इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो पोर्टफोलियो में तो उस कोरिलेशन का आपको क्या बेनिफिट मिलेगा, तो आपका कंबाइंड वार क्या होगा, दैट इज द डिफरेंस दैट यू नीड टू कैलकुलेट. बट दिस क्लियरली वाज ट्रिकी. इफ आई वाज सिटिंग इन द एग्जामिनेशन रीडिंग दिस क्वेश्चन, आई वुड ट्राई टू फोकस ऑन द वर्ड डाइवर्सिफिकेशन बेनिफिट. डाइवर्सिफिकेशन बेनिफिट क्यों होगा? मेरे को कोरिलेशन कम होने के कारण होगा. इफ दे वर परफेक्टली कोरिलेटेड देन देयर वुड बी नो डाइवर्सिफिकेशन बेनिफिट बिकॉज देयर इज नो डाइवर्सिफिकेशन. बट बिकॉज कोरिलेशन इज लेस देन 1, देयर इज अ डाइवर्सिफिकेशन एंड देयर विल बी सम सॉर्ट ऑफ अ बेनिफिट. नेक्स्ट आपको बोला है कि अगर ये कोरिलेशन बढ़ जाता है, देन व्हाट इज द इंपैक्ट ऑन द वार. यू विल कैलकुलेट द वार फॉर 0.6 correlation, you will calculate the VAR for 0.8 correlation, and I just told you अगर आपका कोरिलेशन बढ़ गया, मतलब आपका डाइवर्सिफिकेशन कम हो गया, बिकॉज ऑफ रिडक्शन इन योर डाइवर्सिफिकेशन व्हाट हैपेंस, योर वैल्यू एट रिस्क इंक्रीजेस, योर वैल्यू एट रिस्क इंक्रीजेस, तो क्लियरली डिक्रीजेस तो हो ही नहीं सकता, द आंसर विल हैव टू बी इंक्रीज। एंड ये अगर आप कैलकुलेट कर लोगे, जो मैंने यहाँ पे पूरा कैलकुलेशन किया हुआ है, यू कैन गो थ्रू द कैलकुलेशन, बेसिकली 0.8 के हिसाब से करो, ये 0.6 के हिसाब से हम लोग ने किया, the answer was this, 0.8 के हिसाब से किया, answer is this, and hence there is an increase by 48,000. okay, and of course this is next question is आपको पूछा हुआ है 0.6 पे क्या आपका वार था, जो हम लोगों ने just calculate किया, which is 905491. okay, I hope this is clear, which is answer number. This again is doable. This is a simple calculation of VAR. This is a simple application of formula. So the only one that was tricky was question number 4. Quickly moving to case scenario 3. Now case scenario 3, I think all the three questions were doable and similar. They're similar, I mean I say similar as स्टडी मटेरियल के कॉन्सेप्ट। स्टडी मटेरियल ने कहीं ना कहीं फेट ऑफ फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स के बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन दिए हुए, ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज नॉट अ कॉपी पेस्ट क्वेश्चन, बट इफ यू हैव अंडरस्टूड दोस कॉन्सेप्ट्स वेल, यू विल बी एबल टू अप्लाई दोस कॉन्सेप्ट्स इन द एग्जामिनेशन वेल। नाउ लेट अस क्विकली लुक एट इट। आपका ग्रीन एग्रो एक्सपोर्ट्स है, जो 3 मंथ फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हुआ है on 1st January. Now when you are importing, there's an import payment that you need to make for 2 lakh USD. You need to buy 2 lakh USD due on 1st April. You are making it on 1st January. What is the rate? 1st January, 1st April, 3 months. You have to buy, which means you will have to pay higher. You will have to pay higher, मतलब ask rate pay करना पड़ेगा of 84 rupees. Okay, so your 84 rupees of ask rate would be the net payment that you would have had to make. Now what is asked in the question 7? If you were to settle early on 1st March, what would be the total cash flow that would have been required? If you were to settle early on 1st March, then what would happen? You will have to cancel the forward of 1st April. You'll have to cancel the forward of 1st April, and you will have to make the payment as per the spot rate of 1st of March. So first of all, spot rate of 1st of March will be 83.75, but at the same time do not forget कि आपको इसको cancel भी करना पड़ेगा, and आपने पहले बाय किया था USD. ओके, बाय यू हैड बॉट फॉरवर्ड, नाउ यू विल हैव टू सेल फॉरवर्ड टू क्लोज द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट. सेल फॉरवर्ड, बट कितने महीनों का आप सेल करोगे? सो रिमेंबर, यू हैव टू स्क्वायर ऑफ द सेम पीरियड दैट इज पेंडिंग द एक्सपायरी. 1st मार्च पे हो, 1st मार्च पे हो, ओके, यू आर ऑन 1st मार्च and 1st April is the expiry, so basically 1 month is there. So 1 month, now you remember you have to take a reverse position. What will be the reverse position? The reverse position will end up being a selling. So you will sell at the bid rate, so you will sell at 83.7 and you will buy at 83.75 again. So now if you see the solution, what will you do to cancel? You will go for 83.7, and for the new ask rate you will take for buying the new contract 83.75. so 1,68,10,000 will be the answer. The next question आपको क्या पूछा हुआ है? आपको पूछा हुआ है, if you cancel the import, if you altogether cancel the contract of 2 lakh, then what will be the mark to market gain or loss on the following date? So अगर आपने 1st Feb को कैंसिल किया तो क्या होगा, 1st मार्च को कैंसिल किया होगा तो क्या होगा, 1st April को क्या होगा तो क्या होगा. 1st Feb को अगर कर रहे हो तो 2 महीने हैं एक्सपायरी को, यू विल टेक द रिवर्स पोजीशन, सो यू विल टेक अ बिड रेट, सो आप लोगे 83.75. 1st मार्च को कैंसिल करोगे, सो यू विल टेक 83.5, एंड अगर आप 1st April को करते हो, यू विल हैव टू कैंसिल एट द स्पॉट रेट व्हिच इज 84.2. सो क्लियरली इफ यू नाउ सॉल्व ऑल द 3 क्वेश्चंस, कैंसिलेशन व्हाट डेट, रेसिडुअल मैच्योरिटी 2 months, 1 month spot, and finally you will consider the bid rate of all the 3. Your MTM will be nothing but bid minus the original rate which was 84 we just saw, and hence loss 1060 and profit of 40. So your answer will be A, which is minus 10,000 minus 60,000 and a profit of 40,000. Now in question 9, this is an interesting question because I found this ambiguous in my opinion. First, you've been asked what is the maturity settlement cost. The maturity settlement cost is pretty simple. 2 lakh into what was the original rate? The original rate was 84. So 2 lakh into 84 अगर आप करते हो तो answer will be 1,68 lakhs. Anyways, ABC तीनों में वही आंसर है. Now, the second part is interesting. वो क्या बोल रहे हैं? Net extra cost of closing the original. So now you have to close the original on what date? You have to close the original on 1st March. How do you close the original on 1st March? You will go for the bid rate which is 83.70. But the problem here is the question says you will rebook the 1 month forward. So now on 1st March, you will buy a new contract of 1 month forward. If you buy a new contract, you will buy it at ask rate because you are buying the new contract. You will be paying higher when you are buying at 84.05. Not sure why anyone in their sane mind would be doing this. It makes no logic. Why? Because why will you cancel a forward contract for the same expiry and you rebook for the same expiry, which is 1st April? It does not make logic. However, if you strictly go as per what is given in the question, the answer will be 70,000. I will show you the solution. In my opinion, grace mark should be given for this question, but of course, in my opinion, you should write to ICAI. You should write to ICAI. I will show you the email ID at which you should write to ICAI, which is examfeedback@ici.in. In my personal opinion, by 24th of May, you should send an email to ICAI pointing this out. Okay. But like I told you, 1,68 lakhs. Cancellation loss will be what? 84 minus 83.7, which was the bid rate of 1 month forward on 1st of March. So 60,000 loss यहाँ से आएगा आपका, correct? But you will take a new 1 month forward contract and you'll have to do this at the ask rate. So you'll end up paying 168 10,000. The original was 168, so 10,000 यहाँ पे loss, 160,000 वहाँ पे loss हुआ. Total आपका loss होगा 70,000. However, I have mentioned that I'm not sure why anyone would cancel a forward contract and reboot for the same period. The solution above, however, is as per the exact verbatim of the questions. But if rebooking was not done, if we were to use logic and say if cancellation hua hai, rebooking nahi hua hai, then loss would be 60,000 only. Okay, so this is, in my opinion, ambiguous question. I have gone for option C, which is as per the wordings of whatever has been given in the question. ऐसे अगर क्वेश्चंस एग्जाम में आ रहे हैं, अगर मैं आपकी जगह पे हूँ, आई विल सिंपली डू वट एवर द क्वेश्चन हैज सेड विदाउट थिंकिंग एक्स्ट्रा. आई विल नॉट कॉम्प्लिकेट थिंग्स. आई विल सिंपली डू वट एवर हैज बीन सेड इन द क्वेश्चन. एंड द सेम लॉजिक एक्चुअली अप्लाइज इन द नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, विच इज केस सिनेरियो 4, द सोवरेन गोल्ड बॉन्ड्स, विच एक्चुअली मोस्ट ऑफ यू हैव पॉइंटेड आउट. सर AFM का पेपर देने गए थे, लगा था टैक्स का पेपर आ गया. बट आपको टैक्स सोचना ही नहीं है. आपको जो क्वेश्चन में पूछा है आपको वही सोचना है. सो लेट अस सी व्हाट इज द डेटा दैट हैज बीन गिवन. The government of India issues a 5-year sovereign gold bond at a price of 5,000. Okay. What is the coupon rate? Interest is 2.5%. Mr. JK purchased 200 grams. Okay. Now, so the total investment is what? 5,000 into 200 grams. So total investment is approximately 10 lakhs. Okay. At the end of 5 years, the bond will be redeemed at the prevailing market price. What is the prevailing market price that is given in the question? The prevailing market price not given in the case study, given in the first question, which is 10th question, 6800 per gram. Here they specifically mention any capital gain that is arising is taxable at 20% after considering the benefit of indexation, and the indexation is assumed to be 4% per annum. आप कोई स्मार्ट स्टूडेंट होगा, एक्स्ट्रा स्मार्ट स्टूडेंट होगा, वो बोलेगा पर सर इंडेक्सेशन का बेनिफिट तो नहीं मिलता है. आपको टैक्स सोचना ही नहीं है. आपको क्वेश्चन में क्या दिया है, आप सिंपली वो सोचो क्वेश्चन में क्या दिया है. आपको इंडेक्सेशन का बेनिफिट मिलेगा, ये क्वेश्चन में दिया हुआ है, करेक्ट. तो आपको इंडेक्सेशन का बेनिफिट लेना है. आप सिंपली बोलोगे 5,000 इंटू 1.04, विच इज वॉट? इन्फ्लेशन रेज टू 4 बिकॉज 4 ईयर्स है. दिस इंटू 200, ये हो गया आपका टोटल cost which is deductible as per the income tax according to this question. and आपका sale price is nothing but 6,800 into 200, that will be your sale value. अगर आप इसको माइनस करोगे, you will get your capital gains. Your index cost is 12,16,653 on taxable gain is 143,347. I'll show the solution as well. You can anyways go through your solution on your own. This is already done over here. ये पूरा आपका कैलकुलेशन किया हुआ है. Okay. So if I were a student, yes, I would get confused, sir tax क्यों पूछा है. But I will simply say, and this is for all the students जो जिनका एग्जाम नवंबर में होगा, नेक्स्ट मई में होगा, उसके नेक्स्ट नवंबर में होगा, कि आपको एक्स्ट्रा स्मार्ट नहीं सोचना है. आपको सिर्फ यही सोचना है क्वेश्चन में मेरे को क्या पूछा है, मैं कैन आई आंसर दैट. यस, you are able to answer that. If you are able to answer that, superb. And then if you think about it, this was such an easy question where this, and I wouldn't say easy, let me put it this way. Let's keep easy aside because actually this is confusing. But I will say this is very intuitive, this is very logical, where I will use my logic and say, okay, I've been given in the question कि मेरे को indexed cost calculate करना है. I have calculated the indexed cost and then I will say what is my taxable gain, sell value minus indexed cost of acquisition, जो कि फटाफट आपका calculate होगा if you were to not think extra and simply do what is given in the question. Similarly, what is the net amount received? Net amount will be the sale value minus जो आपका taxable gain है उस पर आप 20% टैक्स लगा दोगे. Now they are saying 30% tax bracket doesn't matter because capital gains tax is 20%. So जो मेरा gain है 143,347 उससे मैं 20% लगाऊंगा. That is the amount of tax that I pay. 6,800 into 200 is the total sale value. उसमें से मैं tax हटा दूंगा. So my answer will be 13,331,331. वो मैंने पूरा solution में solve किया हुआ. You can go and check the solution. Now this question, by the way, now in this question if you see, it is asked what is the post-tax annual interest income. This part is very simple because you will say I am purchasing 200 grams at 5,000. So this is 10 lakhs. 10 lakhs pay. I will end up receiving what is given in the question. 2.5% is given in the question. So I will end up receiving 25,000 of interest every year. बट इस पे मेरे को टैक्स भरना पड़ेगा 30% पे. सो 25,000 इंटू 1 माइनस 0.3, सो 25,000 इंटू 0.7 विल बी 17,500. क्लियर? सो द फर्स्ट पार्ट इज क्लियर. नाउ द सेकेंड पार्ट इज, हमको पूछा है क्वेश्चन में व्हाट इज द रियल पोस्ट टैक्स रिटर्न. अब यहाँ पे दिस इज एक्चुअली एन एम्बिगुअस क्वेश्चन एंड आई टेल यू व्हाई इट इज एम्बिगुअस. व्हाइल आई हैव सॉल्व्ड इट एंड यू विल गेट द आंसर. द वे आई हैव सॉल्व्ड इट इज योर रिटर्न पोस्ट टैक्स इज 1.75. उसमें से अगर आप इन्फ्लेशन हटाओगे तो रियल रिटर्न मिलेगा 2.25. बट फॉर दोज ऑफ यू हु हैव स्टडीड द फिशर इक्वेशन विल नो दैट 1 प्लस नॉमिनल रेट इज इक्वल टू 1 प्लस रियल रेट इनटू 1 प्लस इन्फ्लेशन. एंड इफ यू सॉल्व यूजिंग दिस then your answer will be this is not the answer. Okay, your answer will be minus 2.16. but आपके ऑप्शन में दिया ही नहीं है minus 2.16%. in my opinion this is also an error. however if you were to go very simply one would say ये मैं एक्चुअल रिटर्न में से इन्फ्लेशन माइनस कर देता हूँ. सो माई रियल रिटर्न इज नेगेटिव 2.25. सो एग्जाम में अगर मैं आपकी जगह पे होता आई वुड ऑल्सो भी कंफ्यूज एंड सेड कि मेरा आंसर तो सॉल्यूशन MCQs की सॉल्यूशन में दिया ही नहीं है. बट आई वुड गो फॉर वट एवर इज द क्लोजेस्ट विच इज बी. However, in my opinion, 2.16 negative is the right answer to this one. Okay, I hope this is all clear thus far. Now, quickly, if I move to case scenario 5, actually, case scenario 5, by the way, is very similar to illustration 6 on page 9.46. If I show it to you in the book itself, if you see illustration 6, यहाँ पे आपको दिया हुआ है installation of solar electricity lead to saving of XX amount per year, but एक साल के बाद the government might change and आपका savings could either be a lower amount or higher amount and you should decide whether you should accept the project or wait. Now if you actually see the paper, this is ditto same. यहाँ पे भी actually solar power ही दिया हुआ है, आपको savings दिया हुआ है. Of course the amount is different. आपको year 1 savings has been mentioned as this or this. So the question is absolutely the same as the illustration 6 on page 9.46. Of course, यहाँ पे उनके values change हुए हैं, but then the question is absolutely the same. Now, how do you solve it? You will have to do what? Risk neutral valuation, comparable returns in both scenarios, and risk neutral probability is what you are expected to calculate. Before that, on the question, you are given the total cost of installing 3.2 crores. Savings, if you do it in the first year, is 25 lakhs. If you do it in year 0 is 25 lakhs. If you do it in year 1, it could either be 15 lakh or it could be 40 lakh. आपका WACC है 9.5% and your risk-free return is 6.5%. आपको करना क्या है? Calculate. Now you have to calculate what is the probability, what is the return of high return, what is the return in case of low savings, and what is the probability of a high return. And in fact, I'll tell you the funny part. While the question is A, answer is A, and we see how we reach the answer A. आपको probability second question में दिया ही हुआ है using the risk neutral probability of 69.5% of high. So कहीं ना कहीं first smart student will know that the answer is either A or the answer is D. Okay. Now how to solve this? Basically what you will do is you will calculate the value. So 40 lakhs divided by 9.5%, which is what? Which is the WACC. You will get the total value. उसमें से आप 320 हटा दोगे, which is the cost. So you will be able to find the net return in each of these scenarios. How do you calculate the risk neutral probability? The formula you already know. The answer will be 19.5%. It is quite interesting that the answer was already given in part B of the question. Okay, rather question 14. Okay, now question 14, if you see what is asked, they are saying you are supposed to compute the present value of this option to wait for 1 year, which you have to either discount at risk free rate or at WACC, and दोनों का आंसर ढूंढना है. So सबसे पहले तो आप ये ऑप्शन की वैल्यू कैलकुलेट करोगे एंड देन उसको आप डिस्काउंट करोगे ईदर रिस्क फ्री रेट से और WACC से. सो व्हाट इज द वैल्यू वी हैड ऑलरेडी कैलकुलेटेड. सो वी नो व्हाट इज द NAV 421 minus 320 and 157 minus 320 लाख. सो आपको NAV दोनों का मिल गया. पे ऑफ क्या होगा इन द फर्स्ट ईयर? पे ऑफ विल बी प्रोबेबिलिटी ऑफ हाई इनटू और रादर प्लस 1 minus probability into the lower NAV. So your year 1 payoff is 20.79 lakh. उसमें से अगर मैं उसको डिस्काउंट करूं, I can discount it at RF, which is risk-free rate, that is 19.53, and if I discount it at 9.5%, it is 18.98. So your answer is option number D, which is of 14. Option is D, 19.53 and 18.98 respectively. Question 15, again, what do you need to do? You need to find out the NAV. We've already found out the NAV. Through this, you already know the NAV. If you do 25 lakhs today, what is the valuation? 25 divided by 9.5 is WACC. Your NAV will be negative 0.57. And in the other two cases, high and low, you already calculated the NAV, which is 1.01 and 1.62 crores. So your answer is C, which is minus 0.57, 1.01 and minus 1.62. So कहीं ना कहीं आप देख रहे होंगे कि if you would have solved MCQs using purely logic without getting panicky कि टैक्स पूछ लिया, ये पूछ लिया, वो पूछ लिया, अगर आप purely logic से यूज़ करो, कहीं ना कहीं 20-22 मार्क तो पॉसिबल है MCQs में. एंड अगर आप थियरी पढ़ के गए हो तो शायद 20-22 से भी ज़्यादा मार्क्स आर पॉसिबल, एक्सेप्ट फॉर द डाइवर्सिफिकेशन बेनिफिट. अगर मैं उसको छोड़ भी दूं, अगर आप थियरी पढ़ के गए हो, प्रोबेबली यू आर एबल टू आंसर ऑलमोस्ट ऑल द क्वेश्चंस. नाउ लेट अस क्विकली गो टू सब्जेक्टिव MCQ सॉल्यूशंस. तो शायद आप बाकी लोगों के वीडियोस पे भी देख चुके होंगे डिस्क्रिप्टिव क्वेश्चंस के सॉल्यूशन. प्लीज लुक एट इट. ओके, so Bharat Infrastructure Limited, BIL, is a company. They want to invest in Republic of Valoria. The project costs 4,000 million Valors. Okay, VL is the foreign currency. 4 years के लिए ये लोग कर रहे हैं. उसके बाद guaranteed sale price they will be getting is 8,000. The initial investment is 4,000. Guaranteed return is 8,000 million. Okay. Now during this 4-year period, they will be receiving, so annual fee that they will be receiving will be 80 million. Okay, they will provide some services, उसके लिए उन लोगों को 80 million VL मिलेगा. Okay, they will get 80 million VL, which is the Valoria's foreign currency, or rather Valoria's currency. Now you've decided to swap the original 4,000 million at today's spot rate. What is today's spot rate given in the question? 50. VL by R is given, which means R is the stronger currency, VL is the weaker currency, because you'll have to give 50 VLs to get 1 rupee. You'll have to give 50 VL to get 1 rupee. So आपने आज की डेट पे ही 4,000 divided by 50, which is 80 million INR आपने already पे कर दिया है to receive 4,000 million, and आप बोल रहे हो 4 years के बाद I will exactly exchange at the same rate to get the same principal back. Okay, the swap will be reversed in the 4 year with the same principal amount and the same spot rate. Clear? Bank will charge an annual facilitation rate of 0.3% on the rupee principal amount. What is the rupee principal amount? We just calculated 4,000 divided by 50. 80 million is the rupee principal. उसको अगर आप 0.3% करोगे, the answer will be 0.24 million rupees. Okay. Now what do you need to do? Currency swap considers only the initial investment, and hedge of all other foreign currencies will be done on the respective forward rates, which is this and this. So now let us quickly look at the solution. Discount rate is given at 14%. What is the solution? Very quickly, if you go through the solution, what will you do of today's 4,000 million? 80 million rupees you will give, which you will get back as it is at the end of 4th year. So as it is, you will be getting 80 million, which is this number at the end of 4th year. Now what will you do? Every year you will receive 80 million, which you will convert at the respective yearly forward rate. So if you see 80 million every year, you will convert at the respective forward rates. Okay, next is facilitation fee, 0.24 million rupees. इसको कन्वर्ट करने की जरूरत नहीं है, because it is already payable in rupees. It is payable annually in INR. तो आपका जो receipts आया, उसको आप जब रुपी में कन्वर्ट करोगे, this is the converted number, 80 divided by 53 is the converted number. उसमें से आप 0.24 million माइनस कर दोगे, because that is the INR cash outflow. This is the net INR cash inflow. Okay, ये आप हर ईयर के लिए कैलकुलेट करोगे. अब for year 4 what happens? Year 4 what happens? You convert the original 4,000 at the swap ratio, and you convert the remaining 4,000. Remember, we said they are going to get a guaranteed sale price of 8,000. So the remaining 4,000 they will convert at 63.12, which is the forward rate for year 4, which will get this much INR. अब आप इसको discount rate कर लो at 14%. आपको already question में इन लोगों ने present value factors दिए हुए, discounting factors दिए हुए, which means your NPV is 8.2526 million rupees. Given it's a positive NPV, you will be able to invest. Now if you think about it, was this a new question? It is absolutely a new question. But is the concept not covered in ICAI? No. It is very well covered in ICAI. क्या आपको forward सिखाया ICAI ने? Definitely. क्या आपको swap सिखाया ICAI ने? Definitely. तो क्या नहीं covered है ICAI study material में? It is definitely covered. But yes, I agree, it is an application of your knowledge. So it is doable. Sorry, it is doable, but it is a new question which is not given in ICAI. But if I were a student, I would simply कामली रीड दिस क्वेश्चन एंड आई वुड से क्या पूछा है. पहले बोला है 4000 मिलियन जो है प्रिंसिपल, उसको मैं स्वैप रेशियो पे स्वैप करूंगा आज भी, फोर्थ ईयर पे भी. एनुअल 80 मिलियन पेमेंट्स को मैं रिस्पेक्टिव फॉरवर्ड रेट्स पे स्वैप करूंगा. 0.24 मिलियन रुपीज तो आईएनआर में ये जो बैंक का फैसिलिटेशन फी है, एंड द रिमेनिंग 4000 मिलियन विच इज 8000 माइनस 4000, उसको क्या करेंगे हम लोग, उसको हम लोग फोर्थ ईयर के फॉरवर्ड रेट पे कन्वर्ट करेंगे. तो अगर आप इस तरह लॉजिक लगा के, आई नो बाय द वे इट इज इजियर सेड देन डन, इन एग्जाम यू विल गेट पैनिक कि नया क्वेश्चन है, कहीं ना कहीं आप एक्सपेक्ट नहीं करके गए थे बट एग्जाम में ये क्वेश्चन पूछ लिया. लेकिन ट्रस्ट मी, इफ यू आर अप्लाइंग योर लॉजिक, समवन वुड हैव स्टिल ट्राइड टू अटेम्प्ट, कहीं ना कहीं आपका ये क्वेश्चन सही होने का चांस था. Coming to question B, question 1B, which is XYZ Limited recently paid a dividend of 40. So आपको dividend दिया हुआ है, 5 ट्रांजिशन फेज दिया हुआ है, करंट ग्रोथ रेट दिया हुआ है 15%, ट्रांजिशन फेज दिया हुआ है, एंड you've been said that the growth is declining linearly year 6 onwards. अब ईयर 6 ऑनवर्ड्स आपको ग्रोथ डिटरमाइन करना है, आपको BNR दिया हुआ है, सो 12 इंटू 50% आपको कहीं ना कहीं ग्रोथ रेट दिया हुआ है, दैट ईयर 6 एंड ऑनवर्ड्स योर ग्रोथ रेट विल रिड्यूस टू 6% विच इज करेंटली 15. अभी क्वेश्चन में अनॉमली क्या है, क्वेश्चन में अनॉमली ये है कि अगर आप करंट ग्रोथ रेट कैलकुलेट करते हो 20% इंटू 25%, देन आपका आंसर आ जाएगा 5%. बट द प्रॉब्लम इज आपको क्वेश्चन में ऑलरेडी 15% ग्रोथ रेट देके रखा हुआ है, दिस इज एन अनॉमली इन द क्वेश्चन. लेकिन आप क्या करोगे, आप बोलोगे मैं अलग से ग्रोथ कैलकुलेट नहीं करूंगा. अगर मेरे को क्वेश्चन में बोला हुआ है करंट ग्रोथ रेट 15% है, आई विल अज्यूम द करंट रेट इज 15%, आई विल नॉट सेपरेटली कैलकुलेट, एंड आई विल जस्ट कैलकुलेट वट एवर माई टर्मिनल ग्रोथ रेट इज which is given as 12 into 50% which is 6%. You've also been given required rate of 13%, market price of 850. अब the trick is this, आपको पूछा हुआ इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू पर शेयर यूजिंग द एच मॉडल. अब मैं आपको ये तो दिखा देता हूँ एच मॉडल कहाँ पे है बुक के अंदर, लेकिन दिक्कत ये है एच मॉडल इज बाय द वे ऑन पेज 5.09 and 5.10. H model based on the assumption that extraordinary growth rate reaches normal growth and it declines linearly for the second half of the period. Okay, and आपको कहीं ना कहीं वो फॉर्मूला इन द क्वेश्चन दिया हुआ है. नाउ व्हाट डू, यू विल से मेरे को तो सर एच मॉडल याद ही नहीं है, मैंने तो पढ़ाई नहीं है, मेरी फैकल्टी ने पढ़ाया नहीं है, फैकल्टी ने पढ़ाया नहीं पढ़ाया वो भी छोड़ दो, मैंने एसएम खोल के कभी देखी नहीं है कि एच मॉडल का क्वेश्चन है. बट अ स्मार्ट स्टूडेंट विल से कि चलो मेरे को पता नहीं है एच मॉडल क्या है, बट कहीं ना कहीं मेरे को पता है मल्टी स्टेज ग्रोथ है, आई विल बी एबल टू सॉल्व व्हाट आई नो. मेरे को अगर इंट्रिंसिक वैल्यू निकालने आता है, मेरे को कहीं ना कहीं फॉर्मूला पता है, एच मॉडल नहीं पता है, इसको एच मॉडल बोलते हैं, आई विल डू व्हाट आई नो जो क्वेश्चन में दिया हुआ है, सो आई विल ट्राई एंड स्टिल कैलकुलेट इंट्रिंसिक value in the question. Part 2 of the question says given the current market value of 850, assess whether the stock is undervalued or overvalued. So we'll come to part 2, quickly seeing the solution. Basically what are we saying, we are saying ये है एच मॉडल का फॉर्मूला जो कि आपके एसएम में दिया हुआ है. इस फॉर्मूला से अगर आप सॉल्व करते हो, द प्राइस इज 734, द प्राइस इज 734, बट गिवन योर मार्केट प्राइस इज 850, दिस प्राइस इज लेसर देन द मार्केट प्राइस, तो आप बोलोगे कि द मार्केट प्राइस इज ओवर वैल्यूड व्हाइल द एक्चुअल प्राइस ऑफ द share should be 734 rupees, and hence I should either sell or I should avoid purchasing afresh given the market price is actually higher. Question 1C is actually a tricky question. यहाँ पे आपको दिया हुआ है that you are approaching a bank for 20 crores of additional loan, you have aggressive expansion plans, your sustainable growth rate SGR is 10%, but you want to grow at 16%, so you are aggressive. Okay, you are already at the maximum permissible limit of 2.5 का जो डेट इक्विटी रेशियो है, एंड प्लस इंडस्ट्री इज ऑल्सो एक्सपीरियंसिंग इन्फ्लेशन. इफ यू आस्क मी, ऐसा क्वेश्चन कहीं ना कभी पूछा गया है, एंड इट इज नॉट अ डायरेक्ट थियरी क्वेश्चन, इट इज एन एप्लीकेशन ऑफ अ थियरी क्वेश्चन ऑफ सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ रेट. सो इन माई ओपिनियन कहीं ना कहीं आई वर इन द एग्जामिनेशन आई वुड जस्ट राइट द नॉर्मल पॉइंट्स कि देखो ग्रोथ रेट इनका टारगेट ज्यादा है, दे आर ट्राइंग टू बी अग्रेसिव वर्सेस सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ रेट इज लेसर, डेट मैक्सिमम लेवल पे है, तो कहीं ना कहीं डेट तो रेज कर ही नहीं सकते हैं, दे विल हैव टू रेज additional equity, they will have to raise additional equity, or they will have to manage with a lower sustainable growth rate. So I have given you a theory solution, you can read it at your end, but yes, I fully agree that this was a very tricky question, but कहीं ना कहीं एटलीस्ट ट्राई टू यूज सम इंट्यूशन जो अंदर से आ रहा है. दिख रहा है कि यहाँ पे 2.5 they've already breached the maximum permissible limit, तो डेट तो मेरे को नहीं मिलेगा, आई विल हैव टू गो फॉर एडिशनल इक्विटी. ठीक है, नाउ क्वेश्चन नंबर 2A, ये है आर्बिट्राज प्राइसिंग मॉडल. आर्बिट्राज प्राइसिंग मॉडल इज सिमिलर टू द क्वेश्चंस गिवन इन द एसएम. आई हैव गिवन द रेफरेंस ऑफ द क्वेश्चन, existing questions also, so you can go and check. It is relatively doable.
What you have to do is you have to evaluate. आपको सिक्योरिटी एक्स एंड वाई दिया हुआ है, आपको फैक्टर सेंसिटिविटीज दिए हुए बीटा 1 बीटा 2, राइट, फॉर बीटा 1 एंड बीटा 2 नाउ, और अदर फैक्टर 1 फैक्टर 2 आपको बीटा दे दिया है. You are also given the expected actual return. So what do you need to compute? You have to compute using the arbitrage pricing model. You will have to compute what the price, or rather what the return should be. If the expected return, if my return if the return that we compute is lower than the expected return, then what? And it could be either lower or it could be higher. So what do you do? If it is lower than the expected return, then in that case you should end up buying. Because it is underpriced. This security is underpriced, and if it is higher than the expected return, then you should sell because it is overpriced. ये आपको calculate करना था, which is simple. Now there is a part 2 of the question. Actually there is an error, because they have said Mr. RJ has rupees 1 lakh which is available, and he intends to construct a long short portfolio. So एक security में long होगा, एक में short होगा. So effectively the security that is undervalued, which was security X for us, वो long होगा and security Y will be short. But यहाँ पे इन्होंने security A and B दे दिया instead of X and Y. So it's actually an error in the question. This should have been X and Y. The desired portfolio sensitivities to the factor is 1.4 to factor 1 and 0.05 to factor 2. If you make an equation, weightage of A into 1.2 plus weightage of B into 0.8, which is the beta with factor 1 and factor 2 respectively, and then you solve the equation, you will be able to find the weights which are 1.5 and minus 0.5. So you will go long on security A, which is actually security X, and you will go short, and if you multiply by the 1 lakh that he wants to invest, you will be able to figure out the exact proportion, which is 1,50,000 and negative 50,000 respectively. Okay. Now question 2B. I think it was a doable question. Some might argue also that it was a tricky question. I think it is very, very subjective. You were first of all asked to assess if it is in the money, at the money, or out of the money. You will compare the price. with the price of the shares. We'll compare the price with the price of the shares, and then you'll say if it is in the money or if it is out of the money. For call, you know that why would you buy a call of 2080 when you can actually buy a share at 2000? So it's out of the money, 2000 will be at the money, and 1920 is in the money, and vice versa for put. It is exactly the reverse. Now you've been given the premiums for all of these cases. What you need to calculate is you have to evaluate the intrinsic value and time value components of the premium. So सबसे पहले आपको क्या करना है, आपको डिस्काउंट करना है स्ट्राइक प्राइस को at the risk free rate. You will discount the strike price to today. Okay, it is a 3-month period, so you will discount the strike price to today by 1.5%, and then you will take the difference of the today's price and the current price minus the present value of the strike price will be IV for the call. IV for put will be different, which is reverse PV of strike price minus the current price. In this case, अगर आपका current price is actually lower than the present value of strike price, 2000 and 2080 वाला जो example है, in which case your intrinsic value is 0. Why would you buy that call, logically speaking? And hence, once you do the present value of strike price and you take the difference between the two, so basically what you take is difference between 2000 and 1892, it is 108, but premium was 130, so 130 minus 108, the answer is 22. The answer will be 22. Clear? This will be your answer, and so on and so forth. कहीं ना कहीं आप calculate करोगे, so you will get intrinsic value and you will get time value for each of these 6 options. However, one caveat: ideally you should take a present value of strike price, but there could be an ICAI solution where they say intrinsic value is nothing but the simple difference between the spot price and the current price and the strike price. So in this case, अगर वैसा assumption लेते हैं तो आपका difference would have been 2000 minus 1920, which is 80. Your premium being 130, your time value would have been 130 minus 80, which is 50 instead of the 22 that we have calculated over here. However, according to me, you should calculate the present value of the strike price, because normally speaking an investor will expect a return or share prices to go up. Okay, what is the net P&L in each of these cases? First of all, you have to decide, अगर जो प्राइस आपको दिया हुआ है क्वेश्चन में 2150 है, उस पे आप कॉल या पुट एक्सरसाइज करोगे. Each of these amounts is below the spot price of 2150, so you will exercise the call, but put option आप नहीं exercise करोगे. When you can sell in the market at 2150, why will you exercise? You will lapse, and 1850 में exactly reverse होगा. How do you calculate profit or loss? You will sell at 2150 right? You have the call option to buy at 1920, so profit will be 2150 minus 1920, but you also paid a premium of 130, so you'll reduce 130, and you had 100 contracts, so you'll multiply by 100. This is the total amount of profit, okay? And of course, if it gets lapsed, what is the loss? Your loss will be capped at the amount of the premium that you pay, which is 13,000 in this case, okay? Because you had the option to exercise or not. Part 3 of this question is very easy. It is from chapter 15, which is startup finance. What are the questions? In early stage startups, valuation is primarily determined on DCF. The answer is no. They don't have as much historical DCFs or other cash flows at the first place. The answer is false. You can refer to theory of chapter 15 to know more. Which venture capital financing typically involves stage funding to reduce agency problems? The answer is yes, because they will want to get a control as well in a staged manner. They want to avoid any agency problem. So the answer over here is true. Bootstrapping reduces dilution risk. The answer is true, because if the founder puts his own money, then he does not get diluted at a very early stage. But of course, given the capital with the founder will be limited, the growth will be limited. Angel investors generally invest at a later stage after venture capitalists. No, it is typically angel investors who invest first, and then at a later stage VCs will invest. Okay, coming to question number 3. Question number 3a, one can argue if it is doable or tricky. In my personal opinion, it is very tricky, and I'll tell you why it is tricky. First of all, let us read the question what is asked. An Indian company is investing in a 2-year project in Europe. Investment amount is given in Euro. Annual after tax operating cash flow is given. Life is 2 years, of course. Unlevered cost of capital is 12%. Spot rate is 90 rupees per euro today. Corporate tax rate of India is given, not Europe or US. Okay, read in the question carefully. Financing option is 50% from debt. Now you've been given interest rates of all the 3 currencies, INR, Euro and USD. You've been given spot rates. Actually, this is irrelevant. Even if you do 75 into 1.2, which is the cross rates, the answer is going to be 90, which is already given over here. So this actually is irrelevant. Interest rate in US and Europe, this is again duplication. I'm not sure why they have given this, so this is also irrelevant. Now assumption is that IRP actually holds. Now what is IRP? IRP basically says any interest rate differential between 2 currencies will get nullified. तो आपका जो exchange rate है वो upward या downward adjust हो जाएगा to reflect आपका अगर interest rate differential है between currencies. For example, अगर इंडिया में higher interest rate है, then इंडिया की currency weaker हो जाएगी to that extent to offset the higher interest that Indians will get. Okay. Now there is no transaction cost. Question is which option is the cheapest? Which option of borrowing is the cheapest? Now one can always argue saying, and which I think is the answer, one can always argue saying that sir, अगर IRP होल्ड कर रहा है तो आपने अभी तो बोला कि IRP अगर होल्ड कर रहा है तो मेरे एक्सचेंज रेट्स ऑटोमेटिकली एडजस्ट हो जाएंगे टू रिफ्लेक्ट द इंटरेस्ट रेट डिफरेंशियल, व्हिच मींस there is no possibility for any arbitrage, and all the three borrowing options will be exactly the same. They'll be exactly the same. Why? Because your exchange rates will more or less reflect the interest rate differentials. But the problem here is one can always argue कि interest rate parity holds, but then you've been given tax in India, you've not been given tax in Europe or USA, and hence an alternate solution could be कि इंडिया में आपको टैक्स बेनिफिट मिल रहा है, यूरोप एंड यूएसए में टैक्स बेनिफिट नहीं मिल रहा है, एंड हेंस एन आफ्टर टैक्स इफेक्टिव कॉस्ट विल बी बेटर फॉर इंडिया रादर देन यूरोप और यूएसए. इन दिस केस एक्चुअली इफ यू सी कहीं ना कहीं क्वेश्चन में दिया हुआ है 5% ऑल्सो, विच आर ऑल्सो गिविंग अ हिंट दैट इन्होंने 5% यूज किया होगा, बट इट इज ICAI, कुछ कभी कह नहीं सकते. सो आई हैव गिवन आंसर्स एज पर बोथ द सॉल्यूशंस. इफ आई वर इन द एग्जामिनेशन आई वुड हैव सॉल्व्ड इट यूजिंग alternate one, which is that effective rate of borrowing should be same across all 3 countries if the IRP holds. Why? Because the IRP nullifies any interest rate differential. However, one can always argue that an assumption is that INR has higher tax rates, which means your after tax interest cost will ideally be cheaper. Now if I assume that तीनों में borrowing cost is the same because of IRP, then मेरे को कौन सा ऑप्शन लेना चाहिए? I should go for option of euro because it is a natural hedge. My inflow is in the same currency, which is 25 lakhs per annum euros I am receiving from my project, and if I pay interest in the same currency, it is a natural hedge. It will not be risky at all. So according to me, you should go for euro. Now the second question you've been asked is compute adjusted present value under the cheapest option. What is the cheapest option? Again, like I told you, it is debatable. Is it euro? Is it INR? I have solved it as per euro. but it could well be a solution in the ICAI suggested answer that it is INR, which is actually the question would have been easy, but because of this anomaly, this question has become tricky, and of course it is a new question. Correct? Now APV कैसे calculate करते हैं? You will calculate a base NPV. You will calculate a base NPV and then you will simply, this is the base NPV calculation. Okay. So alternate 2 मैंने आपको दिखा दिया किस तरह आप calculate करोगे. So your after tax cost will be 9 and 9 for both these two if I was ignoring the tax, but 6.3 in India because of the tax benefit. But alternatively, I can also assume that tax is applicable in Europe and US also at 30%. If I assume that, then in that case I can still argue that INR is cheaper. Why? Because आपको यूरोप एंड USD में इंटरेस्ट है 3 and 5 respectively, rather 5 and 3 respectively, तो आपको tax benefit भी 5 and 3 पे मिलेगा, which means even if I consider tax at all the 3 countries, INR should be cheaper. There is a full scope of assumptions over here. I've given the full notes. You can take a look at the notes. Anyways, coming back to the original solution, base case NPV is given. Okay, now I have calculated present value of tax shield assuming that the Europe is the cheapest option, given a natural hedge, and the tax rate is 30%. It is not mentioned in the question what is the Europe tax rate. Ideally, it should have been mentioned. According to me, one can assume it is 30%. Ideally, should have been given. So if I make that assumption, your 50% of the borrowing of the project will be 20 lakh euros, which is then if I multiply the 5% interest in euro and a 30% tax shield on that 30,000 per annum, if I then use the respective forward rates, what have I done? Because IRP holds good, I have used IRP to calculate the 1 year forward and 2 year forward rates of rupee by euro, and then I have used that to calculate, of course, the base NPV where I translated all the euro cash flows into INR, and then I found the present value to find out the base case NPV. Now in tax shield calculation, I will find out the interest amount of euro translated into INR. उसका अगर मैं प्रेजेंट वैल्यू निकालता हूँ 0.952 and 907 यूज करके, then I will be able to get a present value of tax shield. The total of base case NPV plus present value of tax shield will be 471. In the other scenario, I think it exceeds the number. The project is financially viable. Why? Because the most important part is it is a positive NPV project, and hence you should go ahead and take the project. Going for the next question, I think this is doable and there are similar questions in the SM. You've been given dividend plan and bonus plan. You are investing 12 lakh. Initial NAV of both the plans is rupees 48. Entry load is 2%, exit is 1%. Dividend plan, you will be getting a dividend of 5 on 30th September. But as soon as you get the dividend, the NAV reduces to 51 and you are reinvesting the dividend. Whatever amount you got, you are reinvesting the dividend at 51. Closing NPV is given 54. For bonus plan, you are getting a bonus of 1:4 on 30th September, which is the same date as dividend. After the bonus adjustment, NAV reduces, but the closing NAV is 52. We have to consider only the closing NAVs. The interim NAVs are not of any use. Why? Because आप बेच एंड में रहे हो या फिर आप एंड पे रिटर्न कैलकुलेट करो, तो बीच में के NAVs का आपको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा. What have you been asked in the question? You need to calculate the total return. You need to calculate the total return and the holding period return under each plan. So दोनों का total कितना है and holding period return for each of these dividend and bonus plans kitna hai, and hence which of these is better. Quickly looking at the solution, very easy question in fact. Again, very logical question in fact, if I was to put it that way. 12 lakh, 60%, 40%, 7 lakh 20,000, 4 lakh 80,000. Entry load of 2%. If you subtract, the net investment will be this number. Okay, now you'll get initial investments. NAV for both initially was 48. Okay, dividend received for 14,700 units at rupees 5 would be this much rupees, but then again you are buying using the cash to buy new units, so you'll get incremental units, these many, right? Bonus you are getting 1:4, so these many bonus units. Closing units were this much. Your closing NAV is given in the question at 54 and 52 respectively, so your closing value is also given in the question, or rather closing value you can calculate using the NAV numbers that are given in the question. You will subtract the 1% of exit load from both the scenarios. Once you subtract, you will get the net proceeds. From the net proceeds, you will subtract the initial investment of 7,20,000 and 4,80,000, so you'll get a total gain of 142 and 150 respectively. Your total return is 2,93,000. Now in terms of percentage, your gain is 19.85 for dividend plan, which is lower than the 31.838 for the bonus plan, and hence bonus plan is actually better on a totality basis. When asked, the total return that you get is 24.46, which is nothing but 2,93,000 divided by 12. Okay, this is your solution for question 3b. I think a doable question if you ask me. Question 3c is around securitization. Transfer of NPAs through securitization improves balance sheet health, but it may involve regulatory and valuation challenges. Comment on the statement. The statement is true. You can take a look at the securitization chapter where the statement, or rather where both things differently with the benefits of securitization and improving balance sheet health is discussed separately, and separately the regulatory challenges are discussed. If you take a look at both of these, you will be able to answer this question. Again, I think this was doable, and it was from the SM, because theory is already given in the SM. If you've understood the concept, I think you'll be able to well answer this question. The next question is very interesting and all of our favorite, Sharpe optimal portfolio. I think one of the questions that people do believe कि ये तो नहीं आएगा एग्जाम में, difficult है, बहुत कम पूछते हैं, and that is where I have started to think that ABC analysis has been redefined. See, ABC analysis is important, but पहले बोलते थे A category is those that get frequently asked in the examination. Now I feel A category means those questions which are one of its type. ठीक है, इस ब्लैक शोल ए कैटेगरी, आई थिंक ब्लैक शोल्स इज ए कैटेगरी एंड शार्प ऑप्टिमल पोर्टफोलियो इज ए कैटेगरी. भले हिस्टोरिकली इतना नहीं पूछा है, बट क्या पूछ सकते हैं? द आंसर इज यस, एंड हेंस आई वुड रीडिफाइन एबीसी एनालिसिस. बट कमिंग बैक, अब वो क्या पूछा हुआ है? यू बीन गिवन 4 सिक्योरिटीज, यू बीन एक्सपेक्टेड रिटर्न ऑफ ऑल 4 सिक्योरिटीज. आपको रेसिडुअल वेरिएंस दिया हुआ है ऑफ ऑल 4 सिक्योरिटीज. व्हाट हैव यू बीन गिवन अदरवाइज? आरएफ इज गिवन, market expected rate is given which is ERM, market variance is given, cut off rate is given. one thing to note, देखो आपको cut off rate already क्वेश्चन में दे दिया है. cut off rate कैलकुलेट करने की मेहनत आपकी बच गई है, अदरवाइज आपको cut off rate कैलकुलेट करने की बहुत मेहनत होती. So actually to that extent this sum is easier. I'm not saying it is easy, I'm saying it is easier than what it could have been अगर आपको cut off rate कैलकुलेट करना पड़ा होता तो. Given the cutoff rate, you have to identify the securities to be included in the optimal portfolio. So very quickly, how do you solve it? You know the formula. You will calculate the tenor ratio. Tenor ratio is nothing but the return per unit of unsystematic risk, right? Per unit of systematic risk, and then how you calculate it, you will effectively find out whether it is above or below the cutoff rate. If it is above the cutoff rate, then you should include it in the portfolio. If it is below the cutoff rate, then you should reject the portfolio. Accordingly, you should include security B and security D. Okay, security B and security D. Now, what is asked in the question? You've been asked for those securities just selected, what is the proportion of investment? What is the proportion that you should invest it in? Okay, how do you do this? You will calculate Z. You know the formula of Z. You will calculate Z. Then basis Z, you will find out the weights of the two, which is 36.17 and 63.83. I think straightforward. I'm not going through the calculation because you know the formula. You'll be able to calculate it. Anyways, you have this PDF. Using CAPM, compute the expected return and value of each security. You will find out the expected return for each of these securities using CAPM. CAPM will be risk-free rate, which is 6 plus beta into 14 minus 6. What is 14? Market return. 6 is risk-free rate, right? You just have to replace the values of beta over here, 1.1 and 0.6. You'll be able to find out the CAPM return. I have told you that if the CAPM return is less than the given return, which means if the actual share is giving you higher return than what the CAPM, according to CAPM, it should give. If it is giving higher return, which means it is actually underpriced, you should buy. And over here also the conclusion is the same. So effectively what it means is the conclusion as per the Sharpe optimal portfolio and CAPM is absolutely the same, and which is what they have asked you in question number, or rather part 4 of the question, which according to me is genuinely tricky. I don't think it has been given in SM at all straightforward. This is very, very tricky, and it is super logical. You have to really use your logic and say why would Sharpe model be consistent with CAPM assumptions. You have to remember what CAPM assumptions were, and you will have to compare with its Sharpe model, which is single risk factor. It does not consider multiple risks. It just converts multi-factor world into one systematic factor. Beta is used in both the cases. It will try to optimize the maximum return for a given risk. Both Sharpe optimal portfolio as well as CAPM will try to solve for the same problem. And last but not the least, linear return generating problems. There's a couple of other points you can read through. But yes, this part 4 of the question was genuinely tricky and tough. Okay, that brings us to the next question, which is also quite tricky. But if you've been able to understand the logic of the question, I think it will become more intuitive, logical, and doable, right? But I have marked it as tricky and new. Why? Because there's no such question given in the study material, and I don't think the concept is also explained to this extent in detail. So close-ended fund means you cannot buy and sell in the market. You have to enter the fund only when the invitations are open, and you can sell only when the fund is closed. Okay, and it allows you to sell. Year 1 NAV, year 2, 3, 4, 5 are given, or rather year 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 are given. Premium discount. Now, what is premium discount? Premium discount means what is the value at which what is the value per unit? See, net asset value, think of it as book value. What is the value of the assets in the books of the mutual fund? That is a net asset value. But the market value could be different from the net asset value. Why? Because the market value is determined by the demand and supply. So it could be trading at a premium or at a discount. It could be trading at a premium or at a discount. So you've been first asked to calculate the average return per period for investor who bought 1000 shares. How do you calculate the average return? You will have to calculate it using the market price, and in the second part of the question you are asked the NAV. You are asked to calculate the return according to the NAV. Okay, so the first part you will have to calculate the market price, which is nothing but NAV plus premium, NAV minus discount. So your fourth year NAV will be 93.192. Interim NAVs are not that relevant because you are selling only at the end of fourth year. You are given geometric mean. What does geometric mean? वैसे भी आप normal return calculate करते हो geometric mean से ही करते, which is finding out the square root. आपको basically ये compounded value दिया हुआ है in a way. When you do P4 by P0, this is nothing but the compounded return, so you'll have to discount it. So raised to 1 by 4, so it's the fourth root, right? Minus 1, so you'll find out 3.77% per period. You do the same but for NAV values. Okay, if you do it for NAV values 2.22.3, यहाँ पे आपका numerator is 23.192, यहाँ पे आप NAV लोगे part 2 of the question में 22.3, then you will be able to fall and find an answer of 2.76, which means there is a difference of 1% of return. Why? Because of there are premium and discount which are affecting the market price because of demand and supply. So there is a key driver of performance outside of the underlying portfolio performance. The underlying portfolio was just 2.76, but your answer is slightly different than 2.76 because of the demand supply gap and the market theory. Okay, market performance. The next one was Elliott wave theory. This is a straight question picked up from TYK question 3 of chapter number 4. For those of you who would have studied theory, this was a simple question that you would have answered. But for those of you who have not studied this, there's an alternate question also given. If you ask me, this one alternate one which is given over here was also tricky as well. So if I were giving this examination, probably I would have skipped question 4, but I have spoken to a number of people. We've kept debating between question 2, 4 and 6. Given how tough this paper was, it was also difficult to choose which some I would have solved or done. But if you are someone who would have done theory well and who would have understood the logic of the premium discount, who would have studied Sharpe optimal portfolio, I think question 4 was doable all in all. But coming to question 4C, what have you been asked? You have been asked that you have a 100 crores floating interest rate loan which is reset annually for 4 years. Okay, you are taking collar strategy. What is collar strategy for a borrower? You will buy the cap and you will sell the floor. You will buy the cap and sell the floor. So you've already bought the cap. 9.5% rate is for the cap. What do you need to do? You've been given the yearly expected rates of return and you've been given the discounted rate. You need to identify a floor rate that makes collar zero cost. What means that the collar is zero cost? It means that the premium of floor that you've sold is same as the premium of the cap that you've bought. The premiums are the same. And again, what are the premiums? The premiums are nothing but the present value of the expected payoff. So this is a bit tricky question. यहाँ पे आपको back calculation करना है. You will first find out what is the payoff for the cap. उसको आप प्रेजेंट वैल्यू पे लाओगे, वो पे ऑफ का प्रेजेंट वैल्यू पे लाओगे. अब आप बोलोगे कि ये सेम पे ऑफ मेरा होगा फॉर फ्लोर ऑल्सो, ये सेम मेरा प्रीमियम होगा फॉर फ्लोर्स, एंड देन यू फाइंड आउट व्हाट वुड हैव बीन द फ्लोर रेट. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू विल फाइंड आउट द, एज आई मेंशन, प्रेजेंट वैल्यू ऑफ कैप payoffs is equal to present value of floor payoffs. Why? Because दोनों का प्रीमियम सेम होता है. ठीक है, एंड प्रीमियम इज नथिंग बट द प्रेजेंट वैल्यू ऑफ द payoffs. Now the present value of cap is 0.924. Why? Because your cap is 9.5. so आप यहाँ एक्सरसाइज नहीं करोगे, यहाँ पे आप एक्सरसाइज करोगे तो आपको एक पॉजिटिव पे ऑफ मिल जाएगा. ठीक है, अब ये कैप का प्रीमियम इफेक्टिवली डिस्काउंटेड इज 0.924, करेक्ट, विच इज 1.1%. यहाँ पे था 100 करोड़ पे, तो आपका 1.1 करोड़ हो गया. उसको आप डिस्काउंट करोगे तो 0.924 करोड़ हो गया. अब द सेम प्रीमियम वुड हैव बीन फॉर फ्लोर, सो फ्लोर का प्रीमियम भी होगा 0.924. बट आपको ट्राई करना है, यहाँ पे यू विल हैव टू यूज ट्रायल एंड एरर मेथड. कौन सा मेरा रेट होगा जहां पे मेरा प्रेजेंट वैल्यू ऑफ पे ऑफ्स विल बी 0.924. सो सबसे पहले मैं चालू करूंगा सेइंग मे बी इफ आई एम गिवन इन द क्वेश्चन दैट expected rate is 7.8, 8.6, 9.2. तो of course if my cap is 9.5, my floor has to be lower than 9.5. So सबसे पहले मैं बोलूँगा अच्छा maybe my floor is between these two numbers 7.8 and 8.6 and I will try. How do you try? You will say अच्छा my total payoffs is nothing but the difference between, अगर मेरा floor होगा तो even if market rate is 7.8, I will have to pay higher number, which means I will have to pay, right? So that difference into the discounted factor for year 1 into 100 crores will be 0.924 crores, which is the present value of the cap ka payoffs. Okay, now if you solve this, the F would be 8.7625 percentage. But is F 8.7625 percentage possible? It is not possible. Why? Because हमने क्या बोला था 7.8 और 8.6 के बीच में होना चाहिए, वो बीच में नहीं है, so it is not possible. So now you will take a second assumption. What is the second assumption? You will say अच्छा ये दोनों के बीच में नहीं है तो maybe ये दोनों के बीच में होगा, 8.6 and 9.2 के बीच में होगा, which means F minus 7.8, F minus 8.6 respective, you keep discounting factors, the whole into 100 crores. Why? Because 100 crores का interest है is equal to 0.924. If I solve this, I will end up getting an approximate F rate of 8.70 percentage. Now if you put this in the equation and you verify, the answer will be 0.924, so which means your floor rate will be 8.70 percentage. I know this was tricky. अगर आपने क्वेश्चन कभी नहीं देखा है, it will be difficult to comprehend what is asked in the question. First time ये क्वेश्चन एग्जाम में करना in that panic situation might be very very difficult, but for those of you who've been able to do it, kudos to you. Quickly moving to question number 5, which is you are basically pitching Lumina cloud systems to your client. Your consultant is saying that the LCS is a bargain because cash flow from operations when capitalized the prime lending rate. Prime lending rate means risk-free rate, or rather I would say not risk-free rate, my bad. It is the KD lending rate, debt rate. So debt rate पे अगर आप इसको discount करते हो 9% से और value is 425. Will you discount at the debt rate? The answer is no. You will have to discount it at WACC. तो इसको छोड़ दो, इसको भूल जाओ इसने क्यों किया क्या किया, 2 मिनट के लिए छोड़ दो. The current share price is actually 240. So let us figure out if the share price is correct or not. What all information have you been given in the question? The net income is 180 crores. Net income is 180 crores has been given. आपको FCFE कैलकुलेट करना है, फ्री कैश फ्लो फॉर इक्विटी. फ्री कैश फ्लो फॉर इक्विटी के केस में आप यू विल स्टार्ट विद द नेट इनकम विच इज 180 crores. हाई ग्रोथ कंपनी है, फॉर फर्स्ट 2 years इट विल ग्रो बाय 25%. You will invest in the first 2 years 240 crores and 280 crores, which is net investment, capex minus depreciation. वरना आप क्या करते हैं, आप depreciation ऐड करते, capex माइनस करते, इन्होंने ऑलरेडी नेट करके दे दिया है आपको. 30% ऑफ ए नेट इन्वेस्टमेंट विल बी थ्रू डेट. तो आप सिर्फ 70% इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो ऑफ 240 एंड 280, जिसको आप माइनस करोगे फ्रॉम योर नेट इनकम. ठीक है. कॉस्ट ऑफ इक्विटी इज गिवन एज, you'll have to calculate using CAPM. 6% is your risk free rate, 1.2 is beta, ERP is 5%, so 1.2 into 5 which is 6, 6 and 6 is 12% is your KE. ठीक है. Cost of equity is 12%. Stable stage, which is year 3 onwards, your net investment will actually drop to 20% of the net income. To 20% of the net income it will reduce. And remember, ये जो 20% of the net income है, इस 20 का 30% तो actually debt आपको दे रहा है, which means इसमें से 6% तो डेट आपको दे रहा है, तो आप ये 6% भूल जाओ बिकॉज डेट आपको फाइनेंस कर देगा. आपको 14% इक्विटी वाले देंगे. वो 14% कहां से जाएगा, वो आपका नेट इनकम में से जाएगा. तो अगर आपका 100 नेट इनकम था, 14 आपका चले गया इन नेट इन्वेस्टमेंट, देन आपका कहीं ना कहीं बचा 86 एवरी ईयर. ओके. आउटस्टैंडिंग नंबर ऑफ शेयर्स इज गिवन एज 60 crores. Present value factor has been given. What do you need to calculate? Total present value of FCFE for first stage, which is high growth stage. So stage one is pretty simple. What will you do? You will say मैं सबसे पहले KE calculate करूँगा 12% पे. Anyways आपको question में indication दे दिया that your answer has to be 12% because present value factor दिया हुआ है 12% पे. ठीक है. अब मैं क्या करूंगा, मैं कैलकुलेट करूंगा मेरा नेट इनकम विच इज व्हाट 1.25. वाई? बिकॉज 25% ग्रोथ है ऑन 180 crores. तो फर्स्ट ईयर विल बी दिस मच, सेकंड ईयर विल बी दिस मच. नेट इन्वेस्टमेंट हैज बीन गिवन, बट उसमें से 30% इज मेरा एक्चुअली डेट. तो मेरा इक्विटी पोर्शन विल बी 70%, 168 एंड 196. अब अगर मैं ए विच इज नेट इनकम में से अगर मैं ये नेट इन्वेस्टमेंट माइनस करता हूं, देन माय FCFE for the first 2 years is 57 and 85.25 respectively. And if I multiply the present value factor for both of these, which is given in the question, then my present value is respectively this, which means the total is 118.64 crores for the high growth period of first 2 years. So for first part of the question, the answer is 118.84 crores. What is asked in the second part of the question? बोला है कि 240 रुपए अगर आपका करंट मार्केट प्राइस है, that is considered fair by the market. Do you think it is fair? वो क्वेश्चन नहीं पूछा है. What you have been asked is you have to calculate the इम्प्लाइड सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ। अब आप क्या करोगे, आप बोलोगे अच्छा 240 अगर पर शेयर वैल्यू है, व्हाट इज द टोटल वैल्यू ऑफ द कंपनी? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल यू हैव टू कैलकुलेट द टोटल वैल्यू ऑफ द कंपनी। सो टोटल वैल्यू ऑफ द कंपनी हो गया 14,400 करोड़, बिकॉज 60 करोड़ शेयर्स दिए हुए आपको क्वेश्चन के अंदर। सो 14,400 करोड़ हैज बीन गिवन इन द क्वेश्चन इन सम शेप और फॉर्म। नाउ आप बोलोगे इसमें से मैं प्रेजेंट वैल्यू हटा दूंगा ऑफ स्टेज वन। स्टेज वन का प्रेजेंट वैल्यू ऑलरेडी फाउंड आउट, राइट? सो इफ यू रिमूव द स्टेज वन प्रेजेंट वैल्यू, व्हाट इज लेफ्ट इज स्टेज टू प्रेजेंट वैल्यू। स्टेज टू इज नथिंग बट योर टर्मिनल वैल्यू। टर्मिनल वैल्यू का प्रेजेंट वैल्यू इज 14,281 crores. Now you have to back calculate using this 14,000 to find out आपका G क्या होगा. So फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आप बोलोगे ये तो प्रेजेंट वैल्यू है ना, मेरे को ईयर 2 पे टर्मिनल वैल्यू कैलकुलेट करना है. व्हाई? बिकॉज आई एम सेइंग आई एम स्टैंडिंग एट ईयर 0, टर्मिनल वैल्यू इज एक्चुअली कैलकुलेटेड एट ईयर 2. मेरा जो प्रेजेंट वैल्यू है इट इज ओवर हियर, आई हैव टू टेक इट टू द ईयर 2 वैल्यू. सो आई विल देन व्हाट आई विल डू, आई विल डिवाइड इट बाय डिस्काउंटेड फैक्टर. टिपिकली वी मल्टीप्लाई बाय डिस्काउंट फैक्टर टू फाइंड आउट प्रेजेंट वैल्यू. आपको फ्यूचर वैल्यू फाइंड आउट करना है तो यू विल डिवाइड, एंड हेंस दिस 17,917 is the terminal value as of year 2. As of year 2. Now in year 2 what happens? Year 2 we just discussed 20% of net income is net investment, but उसमें से 30% is financed by debt, so 70% is financed by equity. So 14% of net income, which is 17 to 20, will be the net investment from equity. So your FCFE is nothing but 0.86 of net income. We've just discussed this. So what will be your terminal value? Terminal value क्या होगा आपका? Terminal value will have to be FCFE 3. FCFE 3 at the end of year 2 करोगे तो आप FCFE 3 करोगे. FCFE 3 डिवाइडेड बाय योर KE विच इज 12% माइनस G. आपको ये G ढूंढना है, करेक्ट? ये आपको टर्मिनल वैल्यू तो मिल गई है 17,917 रुपए. सो 17,917 crores. Of course this amount is in crores, needless to say this amount also is in crores, but I have not put over here for sake of simplicity. Now what do we do? What is my FCFE 3? So first of all, what was my FCFE 2? I have been given in the question my FCFE 2. No, I will take the net income of year 2. I will find out the net income of year 3. And when I multiply it by 0.86, I will be able to find out my FCFE, because my FCFE is 0.86 of the net income. So सबसे पहले मैं ढूंढूंगा year 3 का net income. How will I find year 3 का net income? 1 plus growth. ईयर 3 ग्रोथ में अगर करूंगा मल्टीप्लाई बाय 1 प्लस G, राइट? आई विल बी एबल टू फाइंड आउट द नेट इनकम ऑफ ईयर 3 into 0.86 will be my FCFE 3 divided by 0.12 minus G. Okay, and if I then solve this equation, my G will be 10.51%. 10.51%. What is asked in the question? You are asked what is your sustainable growth rate. You have been answered 10.51. आप कैलकुलेट ऐसे करोगे तो आपका आंसर आ जाएगा 10.51. इसके बियॉन्ड लिखने का जरूरत नहीं है, because it is not asked in the examination, but I'm just given that extra explanation, which is okay. Quickly coming to question 5B, which is Zenith Commercial Bank's AL CEO is evaluating the repricing risk for 0 to 90 days time bucket. The following quarterly data is available. Now this is one question which is tricky and new, because for those of you who are seeing it for the first time, and of course all of you are seeing it for the first time, आपको लगेगा ये कहाँ से पूछा है, क्यों पूछा है, क्या बोलना चाह रहे हैं. But actually अगर आप carefully इस question को read करोगे, which we'll do now, and hence if you try to solve it in the examination hall, I think you can try to solve it. Let's figure out. Risk sensitive assets, rather rate sensitive assets is 12,500 crores. Rate sensitive liabilities is 15,800 crores. So what is your gap? Gap is asked in the question. You have to identify the gap position. Your gap, remember, it is net exposure to interest sensitive assets or liabilities. What is the net exposure? यहाँ पे आपका net exposure is 12,500 minus 15,800. So net exposure is actually negative 3,300 crores. Negative 3,300 crores और net exposure, but it is negative, right? It is negative. अगर नेगेटिव है तो मतलब क्या है कि अगर आपके रेट्स बढ़ रहे हैं तो आपके रेट्स बढ़ रहे हैं मतलब लायबिलिटीज कहीं ना कहीं लायबिलिटीज पे आपको इंटरेस्ट पे करना पड़ेगा और इंटरेस्ट ऑन लायबिलिटीज विल गो अप. इफ योर रेट्स गो अप योर लायबिलिटीज प्राइसेस मूव अप फास्टर व्हिच मींस योर NII falls, your net interest income falls, which is unfavorable to you. But if your rates, repo rates move down, then your liabilities will reprice upwards, which means the benefit is you'll have to pay lesser amount as interest. You'll have to pay lesser amount of interest. Your net income increases, which is a favorable impact for you. So first question actually was you need to figure out what is the gap. Okay, and you need to now determine what will be favorable. What is favorable? If repo rates move up by 50 bips, if repo rate moves up by 50 bips, then what happens? If repo rate moves up by 50 bips, then it is unfavorable to you. If repo rate moves down by 25 bips, it is favorable to you because your net exposure is negative. Now, the question also says bank's earnings at risk limit is 8% of the quarterly NII. So 450 crores into 8%, which is very simple, which is what, 36 crores. This is quarterly. Okay, hedging is mandatory if the potential NII impact in any scenario exceeds this threshold. So now you have to figure out आपके rates ऊपर नीचे अगर हुए उसके कारण क्या आपका total NII either increase or decrease is more than 36 crores. That you'll have to check. How will you check? You will have to check. So first of all, 36 crores you've calculated. Now you'll have to check the change in repo rate in both scenarios. Negative 3300, which is the gap, multiply by 0.5 percentage. But remember, this 0.5 percentage is annual. You need to calculate the quarterly impact. So 3 by 12 effectively. So negative 4.125 crores and positive 2.06 crores respectively. इसको आप percentage निकालोगे अगर, if you take this out as a percentage of your quarterly NII, this percentage is 0.92, this percentage is 0.46. So is 4 crores less than 36 crores? Yes. Is 2 crores less than 36 crores? Yes. And in any case, 2 crores was a favorable movement, so it is not a problem. So what is the answer? The hedging recommendation is both scenarios will stay below the 8% threshold, and hence mandatory hedging is not triggered. You do not need to go for any mandatory hedging. But if you want to voluntarily go, then you can voluntarily go because there is a negative structural gap. Okay, what you had to advise, whether they should activate the hedging strategies or not. The advice will be basis purely on the maths. You should not go for any hedging mandatorily, but voluntary, if you want to go, you can go ahead. Okay, you have to find out percentage of NII, which we have already found out. Briefly justify why transaction exposure is generally considered more critical than translation exposure from a financial risk management. All of you probably know what is transaction exposure, what is translation exposure. Translation exposure more of a paper risk. Transaction exposure is an actual cash exposure, and hence this is how you can define both of these, and you can explain. I think this is very doable. A newer question, there's a different way of asking this, but I think it is pretty doable if you know the concepts of transaction and translation exposure. Question 6 is interesting because both the questions are pretty new. The question 6b particularly is Black-Scholes model and hence is new, but let us come back to that one. Aerotech Industries, a listed engineering major, are evaluating the acquisition of MedGen Labs. As of 31st March, financial parameters are given. The PAT is given for both companies. Number of shares are given. Okay, so what you can do, you can find out the PAT divided by number of shares. You can find out the EPS. P ratio is given. Here you are not given P ratio. You are said 1.2x of whatever the industry P ratio of MedGen is. Market share price is given over here. Here you have to determine. Okay, clear. Now, the post-merger PAT is estimated to be 6850 crores, including synergies. So there are some synergies also. The expected P of the combined entities 34x. So the combined valuation is in a way given. Now, if I was to go on to calculate, I will simply say 6850 was the total PAT minus 6000 was the PAT of ArtGen and 450 was the PAT of MedGen, or rather Aerotech, and 450 was the PAT of MedGen. Then what is the excess? Excess is 400 crores, which is what? Which is the synergies over here. The total synergy value increase in the combined entity value over the sum of standalone values is capped at 34,000 crores. What is the synergy in PAT? PAT synergy is 400 crores. What is the synergy in value? Market value, how much does it increase by? It increases by 34,000 crores. Okay. What will be the settlement offers? 3 offers have been given. Either 4,000 rupees to MedGen per share of MedGen, which is 5.82. So if I was to find out the share price today, I will say 4,000 divided by 1.0582, correct? 0582, which is roughly 3780. You can use a calculator, but the answer is 3780. I've already calculated. Like I told you, I've already solved the entire paper. So the answer is 3780. Okay. Now, if you see 3780 is the answer. What is asked in the question? The first part of the question says determine the annual post-merger synergy on PAT basis. We've already found that out as 400 crores. You need to find out the MedGen standalone P ratio. You found out what? You found out the per share price 3780. You can find out the EPS. How do you find out the EPS? You will say EPS was 450 divided by 5 crores, right? Which is 90 per share. Okay. So now if you divide 3780 divided by 90, 3780 divided by 90, which is what? You found out EPS. You have price. So P by E, price by EPS will be 42x. What is the industry average? Industry one, your MedGen's P was 1.2x of industry. So 42 divided by 1.2 was 35. Now, if you come across this question for the first time in examination, you might think, oh, I've never seen this question ever. But if you just simply follow the instructions that are given in the question, which is you need to calculate the annual post-merger synergies, it was so simple. Take the total PAT, remove. It was intuitive rather, it was very logical. You remove the total PAT of the existing two companies. What is the excess? That is the PAT synergies. How do you calculate standalone P ratio? Calculate the share price. You've been already given the premium over the share price. You calculate the share price. You divide it by EPS. You'll be able to calculate the calculate the P ratio of that company. Okay, now next you've been asked P ratio of industry. What is the industry P ratio? So rather the company's P ratio was 1.2x of industry. So 142x divided by 12 divided by 1.2, which is 35x is the industry P ratio. Simple again. McJain standalone fair price per share we've already calculated as 3780. See again, if you try and solve logically, I think ये सारे questions doable है. यहाँ पे ऐसा कोई concept नहीं है जो आपको नहीं आता. This is proper plain vanilla maths. You just have to read the question and try to understand logically, intuitively, and try to implement. Okay. Solve for the number of Arotech shares offered in offer 2. What is offer 2? Offer 2 is 1000 cash plus Arotech shares. Premium is 21.69. Now premium will be applied at 3780 because that was the price of McJain. So 3780 pay, if you apply a premium of 21%, 21.69, then the price that you will get is 4600. इसमें से आपका 1000 तो cash है, ठीक है? And there are 10 shares of Arotech of what price? 360. ठीक है, 360 is given in the question, or rather 10 is what you need to find. X number of shares of Arotech of 360. So 4600 minus the 1000 of cash, you have to pay 3600 as the value in shares. Per share value is 360. So 10 shares of Arotech will be given against 1 share of McJain. Against 1 share of McJain. Now, what is the fourth question? The fourth question is rank all the 3 offers from McJain's perspective. Assuming, now this is a very important point, Arotech's share price has fallen to and remains at 330 at the time of settlement on conversion. अब आप सिंपल मैथ करो, आप बोलोगे ऑफर 1 में सर आई एम इंडिफरेंट बिकॉज मेरे को तो 4000 रुपए कैश मिल रहा है एज McJain शेयर होल्डर. इट डजेंट मैटर उनका शेयर प्राइस क्या हो रहा है बिकॉज आई हैव गॉट माय कैश, आई एम डन एंड डस्टेड. ओके, इन ऑफर 2 it will impact me because I took 10 shares of Arotech. So 10 shares instead of 360 value, now I'm getting only 330 value. So 10 into 330 will actually be 3300 plus the 1000 cash which is over here. So I will get a total value of 4300 versus earlier I was getting 4600. Interesting is option number 3, offer number 3, which says I was getting as a McJain shareholder 1150 of cash plus 5 convertible bonds which were at a premium of 25.66% over standalone fair price. ठीक है, how do you calculate the premium? You will effectively say that total value effectively is 25.66% over the standalone fair value, which is 3780, which is my total value, into 1.2566, correct? Now for bonds, what happens? But I need to not calculate what was the actual value of offer 3. मेरे को ये calculate करना है offer 3 का value क्या होगा अगर 330 रुपीज पे शेयर प्राइस फॉलो हो जाएगा. बॉन्ड्स के टर्म्स क्या है? 500 रुपए इज द फेस वैल्यू, 4-year term, 10% discount rate, each converts into 2 Arotech shares or redeems at 680. We studied in bond valuation that you will convert only if it is favorable. So you'll either go for the conversion value if it is higher, or you will go for the redemption value which is higher. What is the conversion value? 2 Arotech shares. Per share, what is the value? 330 at conversion. यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है at conversion the value is 330. So 330 into 2, 660. Is 660 higher or is 680 higher? 680 is higher, which means you will not convert, you will redeem. You will redeem at 680. 680 पे आप redeem करोगे, उसको आप discount करोगे present value at 10% for 4 years, which means 464 rupees is the value of one bond today. 464.64 is the value of one bond today. Correct? This is exactly what I had told you. अब 464 के आपको 5 बॉन्ड्स मिलेंगे. 464 into 5 प्लस आपको 1150 कैश मिल रहा था. इट वाज ऑलरेडी गिवन इन द क्वेश्चन एक्सप्लिसिटली दैट आर गेटिंग 1150 कैश. नाउ इफ यू सी द थर्ड ऑप्शन, इट विल गिव यू एन अमाउंट ऑफ 3473, which is lower than all the 3, and hence your ranking will be offer 2 of 4300 is the highest. So a McJain shareholder should go for offer 1, or rather offer 2 which is ranked 1, offer 1 which is 4000 is ranked 2, and offer 3 which is 3473 is ranked 3. So as a McJain shareholder I would go for offer 2 which is cash plus equity which is worth 4300 plus per share. This is question 6A. Is it tricky? Yes, it is tricky because I'm seeing it for the first time and I don't know. But was it doable? In a way I think it was doable because it is pure logic. If you just follow the instructions in the question, I think you will be able to do it. And question 6B, finally the last question and my most favorite question of this chapter. I'll tell you why it is the most favorite question, because यहाँ पे आपको पूछ लिया है hedge ratio and the probability that पहले एक तो लोग including myself we generally leave Black-Scholes model in the examination, लेकिन अगर एक तो वैसे ही लोग छोड़कर जाते हैं Black-Scholes and I don't million people I know it is
typically tough to remember, but typically anyways people leave Black-Scholes, and उसमें भी आपको पूछ लिया hedge ratio क्या है, probability that price in spot market in on expiration would be higher than the exercise price. ये पता नहीं, सुना ही नहीं है कभी भी. I will show you where this is given in the module, and which is one more proof of the fact that कहीं ना कहीं ICAI is really going into the nook and corner of the book and making sure that you studied properly. Now if you look at page 9.28 of the module, you will see that कहीं ना कहीं आपको hedge ratio दिया हुआ है क्वेश्चन में, which is ND1. हम सब ने जब फॉर्मूला पढ़ा है हमने ND1 पढ़ा हुआ है, but we've not understood that this was called as hedge ratio. I don't think आप में से किसी की भी गलती है. All of us did our best while studying, but this is the proof of the fact that ICAI is really going into the nook and corner of the book. ND2 is the probability that the price in spot market on expiration would be higher than the exercise price of the call option. So कहीं ना कहीं आपको पूछा हुआ है ND1 and ND2 का वैल्यू. अब अगर मैं स्टूडेंट होता एग्जामिनेशन में, मैं क्या करता? ऑफ कोर्स आई डिडंट नो व्हाट हेज रेशियो इज, एंड आई आल्सो एज अ स्टूडेंट जेन्युइनली डिडंट नो व्हाट द प्रोबेबिलिटी दैट द प्राइस इन स्पॉट मार्केट ऑन एक्सपायरेशन will be higher. What is the probability called? It is ND2. What I would have done, I would have solved Black-Scholes the way I know it. मेरे को अगर Black-Scholes का फॉर्मूला आता है, मैं उसको वैसे ही सॉल्व कर देता जैसे मेरे को आता है. So I would have solved the question normally the way I know it, and I would have hoped that the examiner really considers the fact that I have solved. And अगर 7 में से 7 मार्क नहीं दे रहा तो एटलीस्ट 7 में से 5 मार्क दे दे, even if I have not explicitly labeled it as edge ratio. अगर मैंने सॉल्व भी किया तो उसके मार्क्स दे दे. Now I'll quickly show you the solution. It is a simple, I wouldn't say it is simple, it is not simple, but it is a plain vanilla Black-Scholes questions, except that they've put the googly ball as what is hedge ratio you would have not known. तो यहाँ पे आपको hedge ratio दे दिया है. By the way, आपको क्वेश्चन में D1 का वैल्यू दिया हुआ है 0.53. आपको क्वेश्चन में उन्होंने नॉर्मल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के वैल्यूज भी दिए हुए हैं, तो यू विल हैव टू फाइंड आउट 0.53 एंड 0.54 के वैल्यूज दिए हुए. यू विल इंटरपोलेट एंड यू विल बी एबल टू फाइंड आउट hedge ratio, which is ND1, which is 0.7045, जिसका मीनिंग इज टू delta the hedge a short call, the writer must hold 70.45 shares of F limited per 100 share contracts. The meaning of hedge ratio, which is why it is called the hedge ratio. But coming back, ND2, you know how to calculate it. D2 is equal to D1 minus variance to the root of T. You've been given the V in the question, you've been given T in the question, and hence if you solve it, you will be able to figure out that the value is of D2 is 0.4265. It's similarly interpolating, you will be able to find out 0.6651 as the value. Now if you are to find out the value of call and put, value of call आप ढूंढ लोगे, and then call put parity use करके you'll be able to find out the value of put. What is the value of call? So what is the value of call? You will use the formula, which is PS into ND1 minus E divided by E raised to RT. You've been given E raised to minus RT in the question. The value 0.9891 is given. E raised to minus RT has already been given, so you will directly multiply that value. Okay, you instead of dividing, because E raised to minus RT is given, and then the way you solve it, E as E you know, right? And effectively, if you solve it, the answer will be 8.88. Now finally use the put call parity. You know the formula given in the SM. Use this formula, minus VS plus VC plus present value of E, and then you will be able to find out that the value of put is 2.63. So that's it. That is the toughest paper in the history of ICAI. It was genuinely tough. I once again repeat that sitting here, it is relatively much easier for me to solve the question with a calm mind. I know that it is super difficult. एग्जाम हॉल में बैठ के इतने पैनिक, इतने प्रेशर में, स्पेशली व्हेन हम लोग ने सोचा होता है AFM इज अ स्कोरिंग सब्जेक्ट, ऐसे सब्जेक्ट में अगर ऐसा गूगली पेपर आ जाए तो क्या. एंड विच इज़ वाई फॉर ऑल दोज ऑफ यू हु हैव who were asking me कि सर अगर हमारा अटेम्प्ट नवंबर 26 में है या उसके बियॉन्ड है, व्हाट शुड वी बी डूइंग, what should be our strategy going forward, हमको क्या चेंज करना चाहिए. I have 5 takeaways for you, which I had promised you will be there at the end of the video. Number 1, I think we will have to reset our expectations. I know that AFM used to be one of the most easy papers historically, relatively speaking. Copy paste questions आते थे. It was relatively easier to predict the paper, bearing 1 or 2 questions here and there. But I think back to back 2 attempts ऐसे हो गए, Jan 26 and May 26, where papers have been tough, tricky, googly balls from the nook and corner, and hence I think we might be heading towards a new trend in ICAI, and hence I think it is a time then. आप एक बात सोचिए ना, अगर आपका IDT का पेपर
SM में से नहीं यार, आपके कोई भी IDT का पेपर जनरली नए क्वेश्चन ही आते हैं ना, बट आप उसमें डिसअपॉइंट नहीं होते बिकॉज आप सोच के गए होते, आप एक्सपेक्ट करके गए होते हो कि IDT या IBS का पेपर मेरा SM में से बैठा बैठा नहीं आएगा. सिमिलरली आई थिंक आपको एक एक्सपेक्टेशन रीसेट करना पड़ेगा दैट AFM में भी शायद बैठे बैठे क्वेश्चन SM में से नहीं आएंगे. And one thing that I can say is happiness is results minus expectations. We will have to reset our expectations, and not just our expectations, I think our preparation strategy also a little. Which brings me to point number 2. Questions are being asked from nook and corner of the book. H model ले लो आप, hedge ratio ले लो, ND2 ले लो, कुछ भी ले लो आप कहीं ना कहीं बुक के nook and corner में से. Even theory questions, green knight, poison pill, carve out, etc. they are asking from the nook and corner of the book. Right, and hence I think this redefines what ABC analysis is. हिस्टोरिकली हम ऐसा सोचते थे अगर ये क्वेश्चन ICAI बार बार नहीं पूछता है तो इसको छोड़ दो, सी कैटेगरी नहीं सॉल्व करोगे ब्लैक शोल्स तो चलेगा, बट कहीं ना कहीं अब लग रहा है कि ऑल द क्वेश्चंस आर इंपॉर्टेंट, 100% कवरेज इज इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड देन मे बी रीडिफाइन ABC एज क्या डिफिकल्ट है, क्या ईजी है, या फिर क्या रिपीटेटिव है, रिपीटेटिव क्वेश्चन छोड़ के वन ऑफ इट्स काइंड क्वेश्चन करके जाओ, बट एट द बेयर मिनिमम ऑल द क्वेश्चंस दैट आर गिवन इन ICAI SM नीड टू बी डन. अगर आप ब्लैक शोल्स करके गए होते तो आप कुछ तो लिख कर आते, 7 में से 4-5 मार्क तो मिल सकते थे. क्वेश्चन नंबर 3, बी प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर न्यू क्वेश्चंस. ऑफ कोर्स यू विल बी प्रिपेयरिंग ICAI SM, पूरा अच्छे से 100% कोर्स कवरेज करोगे, बट देन यू ऑल्सो हैव टू बी प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर द न्यू क्वेश्चंस बेस्ड ऑन SM concepts, which I think I'm stating the most obvious thing, but conceptual clarity is important. And I'm not saying conceptual clarity से आप सारे न्यू क्वेश्चन सॉल्व कर पाओगे, but I think you'll be better equipped, आप mentally better prepared रहोगे to be able to solve new questions, and then of course you give it a try, and I'm almost certain that you will be able to do at least a lot of, if not all, the questions in a paper like this. Right, next is I think all of us saw together in theory में कहीं ना कहीं except for 1 or 2 questions that were directly asked, theory also they were asking in a very very crooked way, or you unless and until you've really understood the concept, or unless and until you've really read it. And a good example was green knight वाला example या फिर carve out वाला example. अगर आपने अच्छे से पढ़ा होगा, I think you'll be able to write that answer. But if you, or the example could also be question 1C, which is sustainable growth rate. So I think there is importance of theory. If you've read theory well, you understand theory well, at least if nothing else, MCQs may, it will really help you out from a theory perspective. But from an overall paper, theory could end up being a savior. And for all those of you who used to not really give importance to theory until now, now is the time where you have to start giving theory its due importance. Last but not the least, I think I'm stating the obvious, and again needless to say, it's easier said than done. बोलना आसान है, मैं एग्जाम हॉल में नहीं बैठा हूँ, but I have also been a student. I have also given tough papers, and honestly, part of it I'm telling you from experience. उस टाइम पे एग्जाम हॉल में it is super important to keep calm. And honestly, पेपर तो टफ है ही, सबके लिए टफ है. आपको बस उस टाइम पे ये सोचना है, I have to give my best. मैं जितना हो सके I have to be able to attempt. ये एनालिसिस को अगर आप मेरे एनालिसिस को भी आप देखोगे, if I go to page number 1 again, by the way, this PDF I will be sharing with you. If I go to, so if you see the analysis, you have to try and at least make sure ये सारा doable 70 आप attempt कर पाओ, and even this tricky 23 जितना आ सके आप करो in a paper like this with you making the sufficient efforts. I think 59 will be a given, उसके ऊपर 40 में से आप जितना भी और attempt कर पाए. I think exemption is possible. Yes, this was definitely not a paper जिसमें आपको 80-90 easily आ सके, but क्या exemption possible है? I'm again repeating the exemption is possible, especially if you've done your MCQs well. This PDF I will definitely share with you with full analysis. I'm again repeating, this is very subjective analysis. आपका शायद viewpoint अलग हो सकता है. I have taken a risk by giving out this solution because ICAI suggested answers could be difficult, but I've taken my best attempt, put in my best efforts, put in wherever there was ambiguity, wherever there was assumptions. You should mail ICAI wherever there was ambiguity or there were assumptions. I'm really hoping ICAI gives some grace marks to all of those of you who attempted this paper. But trust me, do not need to worry. For all those of you who've given this paper, ICAI will be considerate. And for all those of you who have your attempts going forward, I think you also don't need to worry. You need to just keep preparing well for your examinations, and you need to just try and make sure you cover the entire course in a more systematic and conceptual manner. लास्ट बट नॉट द लीस्ट, जहाँ से मैंने शुरू किया था, मैं वापस वही बोलूँगा, तकलीफ़ें बांटने से घटती है. ठीक है, तो कहीं ना कहीं प्लीज डू ट्राई एंड शेयर दिस वीडियो, डू लाइक दिस वीडियो if possible. If you like this video, please do like. I really hope we get at least 500 likes from this video. Having said that, all the very best. Do subscribe to this channel because I will keep bringing more and more videos, especially now that we need to prepare AFM in a lot more systematic and conceptual manner. I will keep bringing more and more videos for you to be able to help you in your preparation. If there's any suggestions, do let me know. Again, the PDF is given in the description box below. Go to my Telegram channel, you can download, and do subscribe to the Telegram channel as well, because I will keep coming with a lot of resources for you all. Again, do not forget to show your love through likes and comments. I will be waiting for you all. All the very best for all your exams. See you soon. Bye bye.